I'm willing to bet that you think most military deaths happen in the combat zone. Think again. Nearly 3/4 of all active duty U.S. military deaths between 2006 and 2020 occurred not in the war theater of Iraq or Syria or Afghanistan, but in places of no conflict. And of that 74%, 93% of deaths happened here on U.S. soil. My name is Kimberly Walker, and I'm an Army combat veteran. These statistics sent me on a goose chase about what was happening in the military and how did these soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines actually die? What did the military know about these deaths, and what were they telling these Gold Star families? Well, I went straight to the source. They have done all the legwork. Please join me and my battle buddies and Gold Star mothers, Terry Caserta and Heather Hedge Baker, where on every episode we will talk to a Gold Star family member and find out what happened to their service member versus what the military told them, and the justice that they've never received. Are you ready? Well, we are. Welcome to Locked and Loaded Diaries. Trigger warning. Please be advised that Locked and Loaded Diaries talks about themes of suicide, homicide, sexual assault, and other wrongful deaths. All right, let's do this. Good evening, listeners. Kimberly Walker here of Locked and Loaded Diaries, and I am here with Heather Hedge Baker, my co-host, and my other co-host and guest tonight is Terry Caserta and her husband, Patrick Caserta. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. So tonight we're going to talk about suicide in the military. Suicide has risen 41% between 2015 to 2020 in active duty troops. That to me is just like a gut punch. And the thing with this is Department of Defense are so concerned, but they just can't pinpoint what the reason is. You know, it's not necessarily deployments, because not everybody who has been deployed, those non-deployables or deployed soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, they still kill themselves. We don't know if it's toxic leadership because no one will admit it. Brandon Caserta, U.S. Navy, HSC 28 in Norfolk, Virginia. He was one of our losses to suicide, and as some might call it, homicide by suicide. He was under a very toxic leader who's still serving in the military. And apparently he's just been moved around. He hasn't been held accountable. In fact, nobody in his chain of command has been held accountable. And he put up red flags. He told his command, he asked for help. He tried to just get off, the ship that he was on with these people. And whatever he did, he told his parents, and they called in concern, and nothing worked. And I feel that Brandon took one for the team, for all military service members that need help and are suicide risk or an emotional, distraught, and he rose his hand to say, hey, nobody's paying attention to us. You're going to pay attention now. And his parents definitely paid attention, and they, the same year that Brandon died, they fought to get a bill written that would protect service members from suicide, to give them like a, you know, just like a secret phone call, like a Batman phone call that would help them without any retribution in a culture that is all about suck it up and drive on. We don't have time for personal problems or anything like that. It's just mission, go, 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 go. And obviously, you know, since Brandon's suicide in 2018, it's still getting worse. The numbers are still rising. The hard work that Casertas did in trying to get a bill written for suicide in the military was finally passed with the National Defense Authorization Act this year. It was signed in. So hopefully now we can see it in progress, and hopefully it works, you know, because I myself don't trust anything the government will tell me, and they could tell us that it's working, or we're doing it, we're doing this, we're doing that. But now, you know, now there's going to be a paper trail or a phone call trail, you know, hopefully with the Brandon Act, all a service member will need to say is Brandon's name. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Terry and Patrick. Thanks for being here, guys. I know it's not easy, but I know you've told this story 1,000 times. And so if you wouldn't mind telling it one more time, why don't you introduce Brandon as he was as a child, and then how that led to Brandon's military service. By the way, I just wanted to say that Patrick is a 22-year Navy veteran career counselor. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Kimberly, for that great introduction. We appreciate it, and thanks for wanting to hear Brandon's story. I know you guys have heard it many times as well as we've told it. I'm sure this is not going to be the last time we tell it either. But with that said, Brandon was a very giving, loving person. He had the personality that anybody would want in their child. He was funny. He could be serious. He was amazing. As a baby, he was very super easy. He hardly cried. Timeouts worked for a long time, and I can count on my hands how many times we had to put him in a timeout. He was very athletic. At the age of 4, we put him in swimming and karate, and he started flag football. He was 5, right? He was 5. He stayed in those sports until pretty much he went into the Navy. He used those sports as a way to get himself ready for the SEALs, although we didn't know when he was a child that he was going to join the Navy to become a SEAL. But ultimately, that was his decision. But he was kind and generous. He would help anybody who needed help, whether it was special needs. He really took care of those people. Homeless people, he would bring homeless people home so they could, get a decent meal and shower. In school, he would pay for kids' lunches if they didn't bring a lunch or didn't have a lunch. He would use the account that we set up for him. And a funny story with that is he was going through this account really quick. And we were thinking he was eating, 2 or 3 lunches a day himself. And we had to question him. And he told us no, that he was buying lunches for people who couldn't or forgot or couldn't afford their lunch. He asked if that was okay. And of course, we're like, well, absolutely, but you have to tell us so that we can keep your account active and up to enough money. So he did that all from grade school all the way up to his, till he graduated. So that was sweet of him. What else?
Well, he played high school football. He was stubborn. He loved football, and he had played tackle football before that in private leagues. And first year, he really didn't get to play that much. Freshman year, sophomore year, he got a big break because they went to a camp, and he really stood out. He wasn't a starter, but he was right near a starter, and he actually ran for a touchdown, a long one too, like 70 yards during the game. And unfortunately, the following week, he blew out his knee. But he came back from that, did track. And then the following year, football is year-round. If people don't know this, it's year-round. You'll find out if your kids aren't old enough yet. But it's year-round. They monitor what you're doing. They check. You're supposed to be doing another sport or lifting weights or a combination of both year-round. And then football starts in May, literally, and it goes all the way through when it ends in December. And then you're, like I said, you're playing another sport or you're lifting weights or something. So Brandon played track after the knee, recovered. He had surgery, recovered, and then came back the next year 100%. And again, he loved football. He didn't get to play all that much, but unfortunately, he broke his collarbone during the game. So it was another injury. And then he came back from that injury and did track, did really well. And then his senior year, he decided to swim. That's because he decided he wanted to go in the Navy and become a Navy SEAL. So it was safe bet he wasn't going to get injured swimming. So he did that instead of football. And he did really well. He lettered in and placed in state. And so one could say since he was 4, he was grooming himself to be a Navy SEAL, whether he knew it or not, because the karate and the swimming. And then sports were year-round. As flag football before that, it was year-round. Swimming was every week. Karate was every week. I can count on my hand how many times he missed. That was due to him, not us. I remember we went to New York together, and we flew in that day, and we went from the airport to karate, and so he didn't miss. That was, again, Brandon's rules.
And
so
we had to pack his karate uniform.
Right, yeah, that went on the trip with us, so we could go from the airport to karate. And but he was a really good kid. He had a smile that makes you want to smile, and you could see it behind us. And it was very nice, outgoing, and it was an honor to be his parents. He was well-versed and ready, along with a bunch of his friends, for the Navy. They were told everything by me, and they were ready. They were literally ready for the Navy I knew. And don't get me wrong, the Navy I was in wasn't the greatest. I don't have great stories for you. Some days were better than others, I'll word it that way, and some were unspeakable things. But the bottom line is they didn't kill their own when I was in, and no one ever died in any command I was in. And if they would have died, I can assure you they would have been held accountable. No ifs, ands, or buts. So I guess the Navy's changed a lot with these numbers. We had no idea. I had no idea that the suicides had gone up so much. I didn't even know they were going on, to be honest with you. They seem to be rare, but with the internet, newer cell phones, all that newer mass media, all that stuff was newer. I'll say when I was in, it just word was not getting out. They concealed it very well. And so that led up to one day out of blue, Brand. I used to joke around. I was in Navy recruiting for 15 years. A lot of it was here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I would tell everyone, and I meant it too, that I'd never let my son join the military. And I meant it. And we had more than enough money saved for college. He could have, any college he could have gotten into, we could have easily paid for, or would have found a way, however you want to word it. It was paid for. And we really wanted him to go to college, but he wanted to join really bad to be a Navy SEAL. The only way he can be a Navy SEAL is to join the Navy. And so we were faced with the dilemma was two things. We could say no, he'll join when he's 18 anyway, more than likely. Or we could be how I feel most parents would be and give him everything he needed to succeed. So we went out, we bought him equipment, actual SEAL equipment, the actual fins and masks they use and everything. I mean, we got him everything he could possibly need, to include a 300-pound weight vest that we still have. And he used it flawlessly. And he was prepared. I mean, he blew away the test. He did very well on the physical test. And he, like I said, the swimming was easy for him and the running was, everything was easy for him. Don't get me wrong, he didn't have the best scores ever by any means, but that was never the goal anyway. The goal was to be, they called him in football the Energizer Bunny. He was consistent. That was Brandon. His health, his stamina, all that agility, all that was 100% all the time. Go, go, go. He knew how to do it. He knew what he was doing.
Never got tired.
And he actually, he was on a swim team, and his swim lessons was at a country club. The instructor rented the pool there, and it was 5 miles from our house, and we would drive him, which was no big deal. We'd drive him there a couple of times a week. And he got to the point where he didn't want us driving him anymore. He wanted to ride his bike to be in shape, better shape. So he would ride his bike 5 miles up and back. And I got to tell you something. I want you to think about something. Most of this was done in the summer months. He went year round, but I'm talking about in the summer, he would actually go every day. He'd wake up early in the morning. He'd be there at a certain time. And when he'd come home, you could actually smell him before you could see him because he was drenched in sweat, completely drenched in sweat, and smiling away too. And of course, he had to force him in the shower. It's not that he didn't like taking showers, just he seemed like he wanted to talk. It's like, hey, go take a shower and we'll talk. But he was into it. I mean, he was in top-notch shape. The only thing we were worried about was Hell Week, and the only reason we were worried about that was because you can't predict something you don't know about. I was not a Navy SEAL. I didn't work with them, nor was I around them. Recruited many of them. None of them made it through, unfortunately, but I did recruit a lot of them. And so you can't predict what that would be like. But if the whole deal was, in order to get out of SEALs, you have to ring the bell on your own. And Brandon was never going to ring the bell. That was Brandon's thing. He'd never ring the bell. And you weren't going to get him on the physical part. It was impossible. Like I said, never said he had the best times, but he was constant. He'd pass everything. Every week they increased. You have less time to do everything. He consistently passed all that. And so that brings us to high school, to joining the Navy.
Yeah. He went in September 29th, I believe. He left for boot camp. That was at that particular time the saddest day of our lives, all three of us. It was hard watching him walk on the, walk to the plane. Of course, I was crying. Brandon was okay. And then, funny story on the plane, he told us, when he finally was able to talk to us, that he sat by this person, this guy who, noticed he didn't have any bags with him. And the guy goes, where are you going? And he goes, I'm going on a mission. And the guy's looking at him going, what? And Brandon's like, oh, I'm under, what did he say? I'm undercover. And I can't tell anybody where I'm going or what I'm doing. And we're like, you did not. And he said, well, yeah. He goes, we're not supposed to say anything. So and the guy believed him, obviously, but I don't know if he really did or not. But Brandon's like, yep, that's what I said. And we talked a little bit, but he says, I didn't tell him anything. That was kind of funny.
That is funny.
So he gets through boot camp.
And a
Go
quick
ahead.
story,
Sorry.
while I was in basic training, you can't make your first phone call the week 4. So there was like 25 people here in Arizona that he worked out with over, I'll say, a 4 or 5 month period. And they got to know each other well. They became really good friends. They all were going Navy SEAL, and they would work out together. And through organized workouts, when I say that, the Navy would be there on some of them, at least twice a week. And so they bonded, became friends. Well, one of them he went to basic training with, who one could say was his best friend. And they were not in the same company. And something went wrong with him health-wise. Some test was not coming back right or something of that nature. And Brandon ran into him, and the guy was all upset. And so Brandon, calmed him down as usual, calming people down. But more importantly, so Brandon calls us for the first time. And the first thing out of his mouth is he's talking about his friend, and he wants us to help his friend. And we already knew about it, and we were helping him already. But we spent half the call on that. That's Brandon, though. Put people first. Whether you liked him or not, in this case, it was a good friend of his. But the bottom line is, whether you liked him or not, he will help you. He's that way. So that was a unique story there.
It is kind of funny. When after at the boot camp graduation, we spotted him immediately. And so afterwards, we started, when they released them, Patrick and I started running down the bleachers because we were kind of up high on the bleachers. And they were like, the announcer was like, whoa, wait, you can't go to them. And we're like, screw you, we're going. And because we just couldn't wait to see him. And, he had the biggest smile on his face. But the first thing he said to us, the first thing that came out of his mouth is, I am so out of shape. And we're like, what? And he was in a special company, and they were all training to be SEALs. And he said all they did was sit on the floor cross-legged. That's it. I mean, they'd run periodically, but he says, I'm going to have to get back into shape. Well, it's because, he was in the epitome of shape before he left, and then sitting there doing, I guess, being idle for weeks on end didn't help. But that was, I think that was kind of funny, but what else?
So what happens is, most people don't know this, and we thought we had this fixed, and unfortunately it appears it's not fixed. The story, it might come up again later in this. We'll see how much time we have, but the person being accused of burning down one of the ships went through what I'm about to tell you. And there is no evidence that this person did that either, by the way, at this point. So I'm not saying he did it. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying he's being accused of it. What happened is, Brandon's friends were slowly but surely dropping out of SEALs, and they were all ahead of Brandon. And Brandon made it the farthest of all the group. And so what would happen is when they would be dropped or drop out, it doesn't matter. Bottom line is they get reclassified, it's called. So what happened is they'd go to this room. Remember, she had told you in the beginning, I was a Navy counselor, so I'm very familiar with every job in the military. And then I was on recruiting for 15 years. So what would happen is Brandon wanted me to help each one of them, and he wasn't with them by any means. So they'd call, we'd talk. So when they would go through this process I'm talking about, the rules were set up that you have a half hour to pick a job. They're going to give you, if you're lucky, 3 to 4 choices. And it's supposed to be based off your score. And you have a half hour to pick one. If you don't, they'll pick one for you. So they would call me, I'd be on the phone with them, and they'd tell me, and I'd recommend based upon what they want to do, the best that we could on the choices we had, which one to take. And I could hear these people in the background saying, you got 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes. Every call too, by the way, this is not once, twice, you're talking 10 times here or more. And I could only laugh because that's unbelievable that you would treat people like that. I'm sorry. This is modern times here. You need to remember that. This is not the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. This is the year 2010. So they had to pick these jobs, and most of them don't want it. And a lot of them are sold on, or the only way to get back to where they want to be or something they want to do is in bad programs, I'll word it. When I say they're bad, they're not things that somebody wanted to do and they joined. You'd want to be guaranteed something good if you have the scores. All these people in SEALs have high scores. You can't get in SEALs without high scores. So remember, you have a high score. So anyway, that was the start of it. And then finally, unfortunately, Brandon's turn came up. He was in week 3 of the SEALs, and he collapsed on the beach. He had been complaining days before that about his leg, and he went to medical. They refused to do x-rays. He went there a couple of times. They said, I'm not doing an x-ray of severe shin splints. He told them, I don't have that. I know what they are. I can work through those. It's more than this. They're like, whatever, get back. So he did. He did what he was told. And I pleaded with him to go to the emergency room. And unfortunately, they had him convinced if he went to the emergency room without their permission, that they would get rid of him. So he wouldn't do it. I regret not driving out there and just doing it. It's my fault on that. But so anyway, he collapsed that led up to, he collapses on the beach. They throw him in the back of a pickup truck, take him to the bell, and he refuses to ring the bell. And so they rang it for him. Now, that's a big deal right there if you think about that, because they were taught from day one, the only way out is you ring the bell, and that's the way out. And Brandon never got over that, and he never changed that story. When I say that is, we were not there, but the bottom line is the kid went to the grave with that story, and there's nobody to ever dispute it. And ironically, the fact is that a couple hours later, if you were to look this up, by the kid by the last name of Loveless was drowned in the pool by the Navy SEALs. He was in Brandon's company. And those people that drowned him, and that was ruled a homicide, true homicide for the record. And nothing happened to that guy, of course, that did it. But the bottom line is we believe that's the same people that rang the bell for Brandon. It's believed. Brandon doesn't even know that either himself because he was not there. But that event happened in the pool. So that shows you what he was dealing with. And then on top of that, Brandon so they didn't take him to medical. They ring the bell. They don't take him to medical. Now, remember, he collapsed on the beach. That should give you an indication he wasn't tired, okay?
He passed out on the beach.
Yeah. And so they didn't take him to medical. He finally gets to medical himself. And I don't have a car or anything. He has to go on his own. And the doctor tells him, you have severe shin splints. But for the heck of it, I'm going to take an x-ray. But I'll call you if there's a problem. Don't expect a call from me. So he left. Within a half hour, he got a phone call, get back here, you have a broken leg. So Brandon was running 20 miles a day and going through SEAL training for 2 weeks with a broken leg. And, oh, by the way, he had an ammonia in sight. So that really didn't sit well with Brandon. Don't get me wrong. He feels that he didn't have a fair shot at something. Ironically, I'm not telling you they lowered their standard. I don't believe that that's a bad word, but when that kid died from that point on, a lot of things changed and a lot of rules changed. It wasn't necessarily easier, but I think they were focusing on issues, I'll word it that way. And most of those people made it through. Ironically, a lot of them made it through. Brandon would have, we believe, would have made it through. The odds were in Brandon's favor due to how good a shape he was in. And the fact that he wasn't going to ring the bell, no matter what. And so he went through that process, pick a job. There was like 4 or 5 he could pick from. And I didn't like any of them, but neither did Brandon. We settled on one. I tried, there was nothing I could do. And Brandon wasn't too thrilled, but they sent him off to Pensacola with a broken leg. And that's important in this story. Remember that. So he goes to Pensacola, he's in school, he does very well. He graduates and he ends up with orders to HSC 28.
As an aviation electrician.
And it's pretty sad because we want him to get San Diego. He wanted San Diego, of course, to be closer to us, but that didn't happen. So there's nothing we could do. So he goes to advanced schools after that, and he checks into command. And from day one, these people are not, they just looked at him like new meat. And they didn't treat him well for his attitude. When I say that is, remember, friendly people, unfortunately, a lot of bad people take advantage of friendly people. It's just the way it is. Sometimes one could say it's that way in life, but in the real world, there's a lot of protections out there. In the military, there's none. And so Brandon was doing fine. I mean, he was labeled the hardest, best worker in the command. He did everything. He volunteered for things. He did a really good job. And, but he didn't like it there. And there was a lot of things he shared with us and told us that were wrong, and they were wrong. I couldn't believe some of the stuff he told me, but again, he was still functioning fine, but his goal was to get out of there as soon as he could. So he applied for, it's called air crewman, which is part of special warfare. And he was accepted to it immediately. And he was going to leave in February of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was working his way through the problems. The other thing is, from day one, I don't want anything about this. So the military has, without exaggerating to you, he went to, I told you, a regular school and advanced school. He was in SEALs for 6 months. The government probably had $300,000-$400,000 invested in him in education. And he checks in his new command and they have him selling candy. I kid you not, the kid was selling candy. I'm not exaggerating. He was selling candy. And he was good at it too. Yep, he was good at it too. And he went to school, and that's supposed to be for people. If you do, first off, you're not even supposed to do that. You speak of waste, fraud, and abuse. I want you to think about this. There were 4 to 8 people selling candy at any given time. For the record, it cost a minimum of $100,000 a year. When I say that, they don't make that kind of money, but the medical leave and all the other benefits a person gets, it costs approximately $100,000 a year. So they're spending $800,000 a year in one squadron. There's 13 squadrons like his just in Norfolk, Virginia. That's only the helicopter squadrons. There's all kinds of airplane squadrons and everything there. So if you take that times the world, look what all that money wasted selling candy. That's what vending machines are for, and that's what lunch is for. Uber, or what is it? Whatever delivers, if you have to, whatever, order pizza, whatever it takes, get it. But he was selling candy, and he did this for most of the time he was there.
And the reason they had the G-dunk is what it's called is because his command was not allowed to take a lunch. They could not go to the galley to eat lunch. So they had the G-dunk for them to go to, and that was their excuse.
So Brandon is
How
usually,
long was he there?
masters selling candy. When I say that is they had him, Brandon didn't drive, but they would take him to Sam's Club and he'd pick out things that people wanted. He made the most money by far by getting things, sitting down with people. They say, why don't you get this, this, and this? And Brandon go get it. It's the way Brandon was. And, but the other thing was he was like a counselor to these people. They used to actually deliberately take a break and go there to talk to him. They'd sit down and talk to him.
It was their water cooler.
Yeah.
It was their water cooler.
They look forward to it. And so a lot of people didn't know that people were doing that, but that's exactly what they were doing, it turns out. We met quite a few of them too. And so he's selling candy and he has this LPO by the name of Jared Bros, which the name's out there. Everyone's familiar with him. Yes, he has the most blood on his hands. I'm not going to deny that. But the flip side is people like him can't only rise and function if you allow it to happen. And that command allowed it to happen. They watched him abuse Brandon and others. And they did nothing. And the guy had been in trouble before about the stuff and nobody did anything. No one kept a leash on him. They just let this guy run wild, especially on the junior ranks. And he just constantly, a lot of his own people that worked with him said Brandon had a target on his back by this guy. And one of the reasons was because he was going to air crewman and that guy didn't like the fact that Brandon was leaving, going air crewman. And in order to go air crewman, I'm telling you, you have to submit a package and it's to be in great shape. You have to pass swim tests and all this other stuff. It's very hard to get into. It's not a cakewalk by any means. That's one of the reasons why people were envious he was going is that he qualified. Well, he qualified because he was in the epitome of shape.
And just to let you know, the swim qualification he needed, there were 18 people that tested the day Brandon tested. Brandon was the only one who passed.
So, he was leaving, and unfortunately, in spite of what was going on, he was managing fine. He was, he complained to us about certain things, but he was dealing with it, which we knew he would because Brandon had a shield armor like you've never seen. And so in October of 2017, he was going into work and right in front of the command, the handle grip on his bike fell off and he fell to the ground and broke his collarbone again. It was actually the third time he broke it. He never broke it in the same place. When he was a little kid, it broke. And he broke it in football, like I had told you. So he has a broken collarbone. So the counselor in the command takes it upon himself to cancel Brandon's orders without going to Brandon and telling him, and tells him that we're canceling your orders, but when you're found fit for duty, the guy in charge of the program said he'll get you out of here right away within 2 weeks. And so they canceled the orders. Now, the reason that I'm bringing this up is I want you to follow me on this. Brandon transferred to Pensacola, Florida with a broken leg on crutches. Okay, so going to Pensacola again, that's where crewman school is, ironically, too. Going to Pensacola again with a broken collarbone would be a cakewalk if you think about it. You don't need crutches, nothing. He wasn't even in a sling by February. He was well out of a sling, and he was fine. And he was found fit for duty on March 28, 2018. So he went to the counselor, said, hey, I'm found fit for duty, get me out of here. And he's like, I never said that. And of course, here we go. And so he said, well, I talked to the guy in charge of the program. He says you have to resubmit an entire package. So I'm like, that's wrong. That don't make sense to me. But this counselor, unfortunately, became friends with Brandon and me the year prior to all this. And he seemed to check out, seemed to be honest and everything. Well, Brandon did the package over again and he submitted it and should have been out of there, but they were taking their time about submitting it. Of course, that's that command. Like I said, there's always ways to get somebody if you want to get them. And so they submitted, he was, ready to go. This was in April of 2018. 18. So he should have been out of there. In theory, he should have been out of there in February. So had he left when he was supposed to, none of this would have ever happened. None of it. That the rest of it wouldn't happen. The story wouldn't have ended the way it did. And so so moving forward, they were constantly messing with him, and he didn't. They were not being fair to him. They were not taking care of him. Nothing. This is the hardest, best worker in the command. I want you to think about. You dream about having people like this. Let me tell you, most commands I was in, whoever they were, they never worked for me. I was envious. Yet they had him right there, and he was doing everything they wanted him to do. So he, how do you want to talk a little bit?
You want to, about Brandon did not drive at all. And they wanted him to, he texted us and asked if we had his driver's license to easily get to. And we're like, yeah, why? Well, they want it. And we're like, for what? And he goes, well, they want me to be a duty driver. And we're like, but you don't drive. He has a driver's license, but he doesn't drive. He has never driven alone, never had car insurance, nothing. And he said, well, they want me to drive an 18-passenger van and a full-size pickup.
In Norfolk, Virginia. In
Norfolk, Virginia, where he hardly ever left the base. I think the only time he left the base was to buy his bicycles.
He learned how to drive on a mid-sized car, and ironically, driver's ed and the driving school paid for him to go to that was private had mid-sized cars. They don't have large vans and trucks and all that stuff. It's not necessary because if you're going to do that, you would get different license and things of that nature. And so he, as she said, he never drove alone, but the school we had sent him to, the driver's school, because he did go to the driver's ed in high school, was a private school. It was one of the best in the nations. Ironically, it was here in Arizona. And he had to go once a week for like 6 months. And it was far too. We had to drive him up and back. And he did very well. And one of the things at the end is you get your driver's license at the end. You make it through the course. And so he got the license, but Brandon said, I'm not going to drive. So I'm like, okay. I mean, we were hoping he'd change his mind, but he didn't want to drive. Well, I was worried about him at the time. I was going to Arizona State University. A couple of professors I knew pretty well. I talked to them, and the first thing out of their mouths separately was that their kid doesn't drive either. One of them was like 27, another one was 24. Apparently, this is a common thing. To me, it wasn't. Okay, but it was a common thing. It still is right now a common thing. And so kids not driving is not a big deal. It's nothing to worry about. They'll eventually drive if they're going to drive. And then again, one could say, I know, like New York, take cabs everywhere, Ubers, all that. And Brandon did Uber and had friends drive him places. Don't get me wrong, but he never drove. There's nobody alive that will ever tell you they ever saw Brandon drive, because that would be an outright lie. They don't exist because Brandon never drove. So he was coming around the drive, and I will admit, because he was looking at cars and things like that. So the day was going to come eventually. It was inevitable. When, I don't know. I'm just telling you, it was inevitable. So they wanted him to drive. He didn't drive. I told him that, so they were messing with him. So Brandon was all worried. He was in trouble and all this. So I called the command Monday morning, which was 25 June. And I talked to the senior enlisted advisor, and I told him Brandon don't drive, and the guy's arguing with me. And I'm like, what part of don't you drive do you not understand? He doesn't drive, and he don't get that. Whether you have a license or not doesn't matter if you don't drive. And a driver's license, we all know this, but we'll never admit it. A driver's license is a privilege. It's not a right. Okay, so if you drive, you drive. If you don't, you don't. All that means is you legally can operate a vehicle if you choose to. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm convinced Brandon never told us this, but if he was out with some of his friends and they were all drinking and they were drunk, I'm sure Brandon would ensure that they got back safe. Whether or not he drove, I don't know. But if that was the only option, I'm sure he might have. But the bottom line is he did not drive. He didn't have car insurance either. One will tell you that you're insured by de facto through the government. That is a true statement. There's one problem. I was in Navy recruiting for 15 years, like I told you. I couldn't be in Navy recruiting if I didn't have a driver's license and have insurance. And I have to abide by every state law that the state on me. Yes, if I'm in an accident and it's not gross negligence or anything, the government is going to cover it. That is a fact. But that doesn't give you a right to drive if you don't have car insurance. Remember that. There's two different things there. So anyway, I'm arguing with this guy and going round and round. And I also called the report. A chief petty officer by the name of Doug D'Alessandro stole Brandon's credit card and used it. And I was reporting his credit card stolen to the command. And so that guy's going round and round. We're going round and round. I'm trying to give you a short version here. And he says he has to go. He's going to call me right back. He doesn't call back for 45 minutes later. He calls back a second time on the phone with him and receive a text from Brandon. He says, "Just know I love you." No idea what that meant. I can honestly tell you that. I was leaning more towards the fact that I called the command. And he, all I know is that somebody ran in there and yelled something to the guy. I have bad hearing. And he said, "Repeat that." The person did. He said he had to go. And when he did call me back, just so you know, again, he's going round and round about this driver's license and the credit card theft. He didn't care.
That's David Tokarski.
Yeah, nice guy. And so next thing we know, we lost touch with Brandon, trying to get a hold of him. I called the quarterdeck, asked if they seen him. They said no. Asked if people still working. They said, "No, it's pretty much calmed down here." And the guy actually giggled too. And so Brandon was getting back to his room at 9 o'clock at night. So even though they were 3 hours ahead of us, it's not even 6 o'clock yet. So until 9 o'clock, we can't totally worry about it. You know what I mean? And so next thing we know, it's unfortunate we have cameras too. The two uniformed people show up at our door and of course tell us that our son is dead.
And we did tell them that they could not come in. They had to leave. We knew why they were there, but we didn't want them to tell us, because if they didn't tell us, then it wouldn't be true. Everybody, and Heather, you know this too, everybody says the same words. "We regret to inform you that your son died," and they tell you how he died. And the way Brandon died was shocking. I mean, I don't even know that it registered right away. And Heather, again, as you know, they tell you how he died. Well, if they know, in your case, maybe not, but the way Brandon died was in between the two calls between Tokarski and Patrick. Tokarski, we found out later that Tokarski went down and reprimanded Brandon, yelled at him in front of everybody, and Brandon reportedly grabbed his cranial, and that's protective headgear, ran out to they call him the plane captain, but it's the one holding the little lights that guide the plane on the outside of the plane, and told her, "I'm sorry for what you are about to see." And then he proceeds to run toward the rear tail rotor, sorry, of a helicopter. And he jumped and missed, jumped again, making contact. And everybody ran that was on the flight line.
And just so you know, there's various ranks on the flight line, various experience, and for everybody to run like that is almost impossible. There's things that I've witnessed things happen. I wasn't even part of the flight crew, and I've seen helo blades hit the ship and metal flies everywhere, people's heads bleeding, hitting the head and all that. It's common that people get hurt during this stuff, okay? So you don't run. They all ran. No one provided first aid, nothing. They left him on the tarmac. Ironically, in the end, he was left there for 6 to 8 hours. It's debatable exactly how long beyond 6 hours he was there. But they all ran. And no one tackled him. No one did a thing. And I'm here to tell you, one of the people that was good friends with him that we didn't even meet till probably 6 months ago, he drew us a diagram of this flight ops thing. He would not believe how far Brandon had to go and what he had to go through. This guy told me, word for word, he said that he's not had his helmet strapped and he can't even go 100 yards into, or 10 feet, excuse me, into the long 100 to 200 yard journey to get to the helo without being stopped. That's how strict they are. And Brandon is able to get through all this. It's almost like they just let him go through. And again, how he ended up there, I don't know. The bottom line is when you see somebody there and they're in there and they're not part of the crew, even though they'll tell you he was part of the crew, he was not. You are to get them out of there and you shut everything down and you tackle these people. That's how you stop them. That's the only way you stop them. And that's what you do. And I've had to do that on other things. The missile launcher spins, well, my time spun around and things like that. And there was a danger circle and I had a key. They called it the dead man's key. And it's a button. I have to hold it in for it to go around and it has to be clear. And if I let it out, it stops. Somebody went into the circle, I let it out. And it did happen a few times, accidental. And no one got hurt. I'm saying, but I'm on watching that area. Now imagine 10 to 12 people doing that same thing, and none of them did what they're supposed to do. Why? I can't answer that to you. I'm just telling you what happened. So up to this point, again, it's a quick version. I could talk for days about this command and its shenanigans and the illegal stuff they did. And you mentioned earlier their toxic abusive leadership. This command was the epitome of it. And I want to point something out about toxic abusive leadership. This command had the highest sexual harassment, assault rate cases in the waterfront in Norfolk, Virginia. I told you there was 13 helo squadrons. Norfolk, Virginia is the largest naval base in the world. This command had the highest. That's another sign of toxic abusive leadership, is when there's a bunch of things, people in trouble, bad things happening, toxic abusive leadership at its finest. It's every case, I guarantee you, it is there. Whoever leads in the numbers leads the way in toxic abusive leadership. And everybody in the military knows this. The upper brass, they all know. It's not like it's a secret. But like I said, I could talk to days about all the things they had done, stories, things they'd done to Brandon and all that, and you'd be appalled over it. But I let Terry tell you, you'll never believe what happens after Brandon. It's worse, not worse than him dying, but it's worse up to the lead up. It's impossible for this to happen too, by the way, but here we go. So I'll let Terry tell you. If you have any doubts about stories, because they'll say, oh, people tell stories in their favor, their kids are greater, and they make them greater and they weren't, all that. I'm here to tell you, all this is factual, it's backed by fact. It's not a made up, nothing is made up. If anything, we're light on this because we don't really talk about things that we don't know for sure. So everything you heard is 100% accurate and true up to this point. But wait till you hear this.
So our casualty assistant officers, they were amazing. They stayed with us that night for hours. They didn't, we have paperwork to fill out, and they said we were obviously too distraught to fill them out that night. So one of them came back the next day, and he opened up to us. He told us that the command called them when the command first called them. The command told them that they were supposed to tell us that Brandon was alive and in the hospital. That is what they were coming to our house to tell us. On the way to our house, they saw a news clip that said there was a mishap on the Norfolk Naval Base and the sailor was deceased. They pulled over, called the command, and said words to the effect of, "Is this Brandon? Did Brandon die?" And the command was like, "You need to tell them, the parents, that he is alive and in the hospital." They argued with the command for 10 to 15 minutes. And finally, the command said, "He is deceased, but you have to tell them he is alive and in the hospital." They said, "We cannot do that. We are not doing that to these parents. They need to know that he, excuse me, has deceased. So we are not going to do that." Well, we found out a couple days later that Brandon's command called our casualty assistant officer's boss to try to get them in trouble because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And that was to tell us that Brandon was alive and in the hospital.
And I think it's earlier where we lucked out on that is that they were E7s, that's upper management. Had they been E6 or below, they would have done exactly what the command told them to. The fact is they were E7 and that they knew better and they didn't work for that command. And they deal with this stuff, unfortunately, more than they want to. And transparency and truthfulness gets them through it because it's not an easy job to do. And it's actual collaborative duty that they do. It's not their regular job. And so, but that shows you right there what kind of command this was, if you had any doubt. There you go, right there. Then it all starts from that point on. I spoke to the commanding officer that night. I was distraught, out of it. I remember most of the conversation. And he said, "There's going to be an investigation." I said, "Well, I'm going to talk to the investigators." He says, "I can make that happen. I will make that happen." And of course, to this day, I've never been talked to, just so you know that. That's the kind of person we're dealing with, Dwayne Whitmer and Trevor Prouty. These people, you're going to hear, unfortunately, in these sad stories, and as you guys continue to do this in weeks to come, you're going to hear this theme. They stole money from Brandon. So his credit card was stolen and used. They stole money from him. They stole personal items. They stole clothes from him. They've stolen uniforms from him. They planted 5 fake $5 bills in his wallet. And I submit to you this. If you don't believe me, I have them and I'll show them to you. But more importantly, I want you to think about this. The kid's going to die. He left letters. How in the world can you be funny if you don't put in your letter that you left 5 fake $5 bills in your wallet? Ha ha, I got them, because he knew they would take them. They planted those. They took his real money and put that in. So, you know, I have them too, by the way. They called it non-proper money. Great term. But they stole everything, and you'll hear the same theme, a lot of them. It's not everyone by any means that they know of. Remember, there's things that Brandon probably had. We have no idea what he had. We didn't know everything Brandon had. We did know he had a lot of money, and we knew we had a feeling they were going to steal it. There's nothing we could do, even if we were there. They don't have to let us in his room. We can't watch. There's nothing we could do. So it was inevitable that they were going to steal the money anyway. But we were hoping for the best. But anyway, this command continued on its path, and Brandon left letters. You can read them, they're posted. I do want to point out 3 of the letters. So Brandon leaves us, he leaves 3 girls letters. One of them was 10 pages. I think one of them 7 and one of them 6. Brandon leaves us 4. Now I want you to think about that one. How in the world can we only get 4 pages and they get 6, 7, and 10? And he knew them a whole year. And on top of that, ironically, and there's nothing wrong with what I'm about to say, these people were in relationships with each other. The girls were. They're nothing to do with Brandon. So Brandon wasn't in a relationship with them or anything like that. And so he leaves them these detailed letters. And the consensus is, if you read them, that they're supposed to help us through this and help us with the command and everything. And they actually turned their back on us and Brandon. Matter of fact, one of them called us and said, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going with the command on this. I couldn't believe I heard that. I'll never will I will die hearing that.
Yeah, me too.
And I warned her. I told her and pleaded with her. I said, don't you do this, because I'm gonna let you know right now, I will go after you. And I'm talking legally, by the way. I will hold you accountable for obstruction of justice. I said, I guarantee you I will do it. I will do it. Don't think I won't. She didn't care. So she turned on Brandon. The other 2 friends turned on Brandon. And they didn't give us the information we needed, nor did they help us. They lied to NCIS. They said they don't even know why Brandon left them letters. They didn't even know him that well. Now, if you want to believe that, go ahead. Read the letters and you tell me if he knew them that well or what. You tell me. And one thing about those girls, we got all the texts from Brandon's phone. If you read the text, Brandon would complain about something and then they would complain. And their story takes priority every time. They didn't even listen to that poor kid. They just used him to solve their problems. And Brandon didn't mind that. That's the kind of kid he was. I'm just saying, everything was about them, not about anybody else. Yet Brandon was friends with them and helped them. So the 3 girls turn on him. The whole command turns on him. To this day, very few have come forward. And the ones that we really need to come forward haven't come forward. And we've offered rewards. We've done everything we can, and they've never come forward. But I'm here to tell you, that conversation I told you on the phone, I was with the senior enlisted advisor, David Tarkowski. You know what he put on a statement at NCIS and Navy IG? He said that I called him because I'd lost touch with our son. He presented that I called when Brandon was already dead. And I have it in my phone timestamp. Matter of fact, I won't get rid of that phone because of it. When I called, how long I talked, his incoming call back to me, all in the phone. Brandon was alive. Brandon was alive, but a factual alive, a lie, and got away with that. Nobody's done anything to this day. The commanding officer lied. Every one of them covered it up in law. And I will tell you this, if you're wondering why would they do that, I told you they're toxic, abusive leaders. There's 2 ways to handle something like this. And I've never been a part of this. Like I said, no one died in any command I was in. Maybe I was lucky. I have no idea. But you have 2 choices. You can either tell the truth or you can lie. That's the 2 choices. If you tell the truth, all the commanding officer had to do is say that a lot of things went wrong. This is my fault. This shouldn't happen. And here's what we're going to do to improve this and prevent this from happening again. He gets slapped, his hand slapped, literally. It might not even, it wouldn't affect him one bit. His career would be fine and everything. He chose to lie. No one forced him to lie. He chose to lie. That was his choice. Second is, even though they knew, I guess they had no idea who I was. And I'm nobody special. I'm just pointing out that I have a lot of experience. I've done hundreds of investigations. I was a career counselor, like I said. I know the Navy inside out. And when they explained to him, I'm sure these 13 people, who I was and how I am and what little bit of information, he probably had a heart attack, and he should. Because if you're going to kill somebody, you shouldn't kill my son, that's for sure. As a matter of fact, they should have by de facto treated him differently. I'm not saying special. What I'm saying is in recruiting, we treated all veteran and active duty kids differently if they got involved or stepped up to the plate. We always had to cater. As a matter of fact, I remember a couple of times where I wasn't too thrilled about it, and I actually got in trouble. And I was an E8 and got in trouble. Nothing that affected my career. It just was very uncomfortable for me. And so after that, I learned my lesson. I'm going to do what you're supposed to do. So I played the game, as in I helped them. But again, I do want to let you know, I helped anybody too. It's just a matter of some of these people call screaming at me, telling me what to do and everything. And I don't even know what's going on. And once I understand what's going on, I would help. But you got to tell me what's going on instead of blaming me for everything. I have nothing to do with it. And I didn't know about it. I can't help you. It was like that. So they picked the wrong parents. I mean, that's all I could say. I know there are many other examples out there. One of them's on this. So we continue to go after him. I reported that IG. I told him about the stolen credit card. That Doug D'Alessandro, he's still in Norfolk, Virginia. You know what they did? You know why they didn't do anything to him? He made officer. And so they didn't do anything because he made officer. And so he got promoted to officer. I'm not talking, he was an E7. He didn't make E8. He got promoted to officer. And no one ever did anything. It was reported to IG. I have all the paperwork. I reported it. They did absolutely nothing. He stole his credit card. It's fact. Matter of fact, that guy owes our state that money, as far as I'm concerned. And this will happen. I don't know when exactly, but I'm going to report it. The statute of limitations is 7 years. We looked it up by Virginia law. I'm going to report it to the Virginia police in person ourselves. So that is going to happen.
And we also found out in Virginia, if they steal more than $5, it's a felony.
So he's a felon. And he's one of the ones with a lot of blood on his hands. Matter of fact, everybody blames bros. And don't get me wrong, rightfully so. They found him guilty. We knew they would. They're going to throw the most junior guy under the bus every time, trust me. And we knew that was going to happen. But he's just as guilty as bros. He did a lot of stuff that we haven't talked about here. We don't really need to. If he steals his credit card, you get the gist of how this guy was. That's all you need to know. And then the commanding officer, it took us a year to get our first article out. It was hard. And it's a kind of a funny story because the article, what had happened is the reporter called the command and was trying to get some quotes from them. And the command immediately gathered everybody up and told them that an article's coming out and that if you talk about this, we're going to consider it mutiny and you're going to go to Leavenworth for Leavenworth. So you're going to jail.
Wow.
Told the whole command this. They had told the command that before, a year prior when Brandon died. They reiterated it again. Where it got funny is they know this, most people don't, is so sure enough, Sunday night, an article comes out. It's a long article and it comes out. Well, the command believes that that's the article that they were called on. It wasn't. So what happened is the first article came out Sunday night. And then Wednesday, 3 days later, they got nailed with the other article that they didn't know was coming and weren't expecting it. And we had no idea this was going to go this way. Right. I'm just telling you what happened. If you'll notice in the article, the second article that came out, military.com, they said in there that, I'm sorry, we skipped something important. They did not invite us to Brandon's funeral memorial service. They had a memorial service. They didn't have permission to have one by us, nor were we invited. They told that article that we were indeed invited. That's an outright lie. If you don't believe us, I'll give you this. The people that come to the door to tell you your son or daughter is dead, they're the ones that set up the travel arrangements for you to go to the memorial service, and the military pays for it. That didn't happen because they didn't even know, and they would have gladly done it because of what the command did. Trust me. So, and the fact that I'm retired military, that didn't happen. So they lied. Then they lied in there, some other stuff in there you'll see. But that's the first time they ever made quotes. And if you'll notice, we've had probably 50 articles since then, and they never quote anywhere. And the reason they don't is because they've been told to remain silent. The reason they're told to remain silent is if they say anything, then we could get them in court. They incriminate themselves. We got them. We could take them to court. And when I say to court, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about jail here. Okay. There's no money anywhere to be had in any of this. This is jail. Okay. And they need to go to jail. So that's, in a nutshell, like I said, that's the basic story. Like I said, to this day, nobody's been held accountable. We hope to change that. Brandon's letter, if you read it, he asked us in there to get justice for him. He also asked us to change the SEAL reclassification thing. And his whole point was he wouldn't have been in that command if that process would have been proper and he got to pick exactly what he wanted to do or something he was interested in, along with his friends. Ironically, the person is being accused of burning the ship. Same thing happened to that person, and they've labeled that kid as disgruntled with the Navy. And of course he's disgruntled and hates the Navy. You can't blame him. When I say that is if you knew the process that poor kid went through and why they joined the military, you'd understand. But through Senator Kane's office, he had gotten that change, but apparently it was a pilot program, and apparently the Navy decided not to continue. So we thought we had it changed, and it's not. So we got work to do there. The other thing is we went through Brandon's phone. We found many texts in it. He was actually, people were wanting to take their lives. He was talking them out of it in text. And so we felt it was Brandon's legacy to save lives. And we came up with the Brandon Act, which you've heard about. And again, we had no idea that the suicides were where they were. And to take it a step further, you have 2 to 3 a day active duty dying by suicide. That's bad enough in itself. But yet the military claims, you could ask them, they'll come up with this answer, that it's no different than society's number. It is different because these people are different people. Remember, these people are close to perfect to be able to join. Okay, I was in recruiting for 15 years, believe me. You don't know how many people couldn't get in, and it was heartbreaking to us, trust me, because we were under the gun big time to get people in the military. And those numbers shouldn't match society. But to take it a step further, let's give the military their excuse. Give it to them. 22 veterans a day die by suicide. So that's 25 a day are dying. Now let's take those numbers because see, you had to be on active duty in order to be a veteran, which means active duty created the problem and handed it to the VA. How could you expect the VA to fix this when you did nothing on this end? You created the problem. So they have 25 a day. Now take that number and look at it and you will fall over because it's totally outrageous. There is no excuse. There's no acceptable excuse. They are guilty. They know about it. They don't care about it. Why do they not care? Well, I can give you several reasons. One of them is they don't let their kids join the military. Those kids don't have to join the military. So there's no chance of them dying the way our children die. And they don't care. Until you have this happen to you, you're not going to understand. That's the sad part. And I could say that about us. We had no idea what others went through. And now that we know, it's a feeling that we don't ever want anybody to go through, yet alone the story, the way we were treated. I mean, think about a retiree. Can you imagine how they treat people that aren't retirees and stuff? And can you imagine the lies that have been told to these people?
And they don't even know it.
I mean, you can't even be transparent and their son or daughter's dead. And no matter how they died, it doesn't matter. You can't tell the truth considering you're never going to get in trouble for it. Why can't you tell the truth?
Exactly.
And you can't even do that justice for the person that died and the family. So something had to be done. So we came up with the Brandon Act. Story is we hopped in the car, drove to DC. In
2019.
We literally had Terry had appointments set up. We went to those appointments. In between appointments, we went to other offices. We went door to door, literally. And you could do that at that time. We didn't know that. Ironically, when I did retire, I did go to Arizona State University. I did get a degree in political science, and I also got a degree in communication. So, and then I was a Navy counselor. So I had a lot of things going for me on that front of knowledge. And so we got Congressman Moulton. He sat down with us, talked to us. They asked if they could take the lead in it. We said yes. And they ran with it. And the first year, it did make it. It did pass the House the first year. Unfortunately,
2021.
it didn't pass the Senate. And we stayed on it. We weren't giving up. So we had to start over again. First year, it doesn't pass. You got to start over. It's not you. There's no such thing as a continuation. You don't get a do-over. You start over. So we started over again the next year. And we had all kinds of plans. We knew what we were going to do. We were going to DC and everything. And
COVID hit.
right. And COVID actually hit in that first year, 21. When I say that, we were going to DC, we had several trips planned, and we were going to do the same exact stuff, in particular, focus on the Senate. We never got to do that because of COVID. And then the second year, it was the riots closed. DC was closed down. When I say that is you cannot roam Capitol Hill at the moment. It'll change someday, but right now. So we could not do what we wanted to do. We couldn't do anything.
We had to do it all from home.
Right, with Zoom and the phone. And believe me, they don't get back to you, and it's nothing personal. Just they get thousands of inquiries a day. And but we pushed hard. We had help. And I want to let you know, none of this could have happened without people helping us. They didn't provide money by any means, but they provided support, networks, resources, and you cannot get anything done without that. These people are great that helped us. And excuse me, in the end, what ended up happening is this year it passed the House again. And then ironically, it didn't make the Senate's version of the NDA, but Congressman Moulton and Senator Kelly went to bat, and they were able to keep it alive in committee, because anything that's on both of them passes automatically. Anything that's on one goes to committee, and then it's taken off. Well, the first year they took it off because DOD didn't want it. They said, we don't need this, we don't want it. So poof, it vaporized. The next year, we're ready for that. Congressman Moulton, Senator Kelly went to bat, and they told them they needed it. They actually told them too, I love what they said. They said, your staffs are failing, you need this. Told them that point blank. Wow. And we went to bed that night thinking it didn't make it, because they announced the Vanessa bill had passed, which was great, but they didn't mention ours, and we thought ours didn't pass. We didn't find out till the next day when Terry inquired about it that it did indeed make it on and pass. They got it on. So the Brandon Act passed. President Biden signed it into law, and it'll take effect soon. And but we couldn't have done that. Like I said, I want to reiterate all the help we had. And there's too many names to list. I mean, the list goes on, but you can't. We knew we couldn't do this without a coalition. But let me tell you, in the beginning, the coalition was slim. I mean, you could beg people all you want to. You can't force people to help you. And as the story got out and we met different people, they volunteered to help us. And the more they volunteered, the more we would take them up on their offer and keep in touch with them. And they would do things, we would do things, and work together. And it just all came together. We were able to get this done. So,
do you want to talk about the Brandon Act?
Yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
you say it way better than I do.
All right. So what is the Brandon Act? The Brandon Act, in its simplicity, is it's a verbal 911. And what happens is, if you could go into work one morning and say, I have a Brandon Act issue, and they have to let you go, and you would go to mental health in that case, okay? However, everyone immediately is going to assume that it's something to do with depression, suicidal, or something. It could actually be anything. It could be gambling, alcohol, drugs, family problems, broke up with girlfriend, divorce, you name it.
Sexual assault, sexual harassment.
Yeah. But we know they're all going to think the person's crazy or something. But anyway, it's confidential. They go. No one can say, can you go tomorrow, next week, nothing. The command is actually tasked with setting up an appointment for them, although that point is in there in case the toxic commands, toxic commands don't want to set up an appointment. It says they have to. So now we could get them in trouble, right? Now they actually could get in trouble for not doing it. But what it more importantly does is empowers a service member to get help when they need it, as they need it. And in most cases, people will go, we talked to psychologists nationwide, and they told us the same thing on their own. They said the hardest part of their job is getting somebody to the door. They said, if you get them to the door, we have a 99.9 success rate of putting them on a journey to healing. That's significant. Hotlines are great. I have nothing negative to say. I think they're the greatest thing. There's no doubt in my mind, if we all called a hotline right now, they would save our life. The problem is when we hang up that phone, or a week or a month from now, if we take our life, they have no way of knowing. Okay, that's a preventative system. The Brandon Act is a preventative, active system, getting somebody to the door to the help that they need. And that is where you save lives. And that is how you help people and get it done. And that's what the Brandon Act will do. And it will also, by de facto, fix veteran suicides. Because, like I said, you have to be on active duty to be a veteran. So future veterans will be fixed because they'll know the process, they'll know how to get help. That help will follow them for the rest of their lives, whether it be through the VA or private practice, because the hardest part about getting help is taking that first step. And I know we're taught this, but in modern times, so many people go to psychologists that we act like it's no big deal and it's easy to do. Well, in the military, they make you feel less than a person, lesser than, you're not up to par, you have no, spine, all that stuff, something's wrong with you. So they don't want to get help because the repercussion, it's no different than reporting sexual assault or harassment. It's the same thing, a lot of places. Now, I do want to point out, this is important, 70% of the commands in the military are good commands. 70% of those commands, if you went to them with any problem, they will help you. I guarantee it. It's the 30% that are killing these people. And those are why the Brandon Act shines so much. And that is why we needed the Brandon Act, is to keep honest commands honest and to keep not so honest commands honest. That is the goal of it. We're going to monitor it. Numbers go up. Obviously, we got a lot of work to do. If they go down, I still say we have a lot of work to do. There's more to be added. There's more to be done. But that's what the Brandon Act does. I was at the doctor's office yesterday, and the nurse came up to me and she thanked us for the Brandon Act and all the other vets. She's a veteran, and she said she didn't know how many times her and her friends needed help and they weren't allowed to get it and stuff. She couldn't believe it. She had no idea. We do not talk about this to anyone. It wasn't that it was a secret. It just, until it was passed, we didn't talk about it. Only to people that obviously could help us or needed help. It wasn't an everyday conversation to normal people. So when they saw us on TV and stuff, they had no idea. That's the Brandon Act. It's a great thing. It's a start, along with the Vanessa Act. We had nothing to do with the Vanessa Act, but it's great that it passed. That's a fantastic thing. It's the start of something right there. Between the two, mental health, sexual harassment, assault, they go hand in hand. Whether we want to admit it or not, they really do. Because if anybody's been sexually harassed or assaulted, they need counseling. Whether they know it or not, they need it. They need it to get through what they went through, as bad as it was. And we need to make sure that they get that help. And when I was in recruiting, I sold everybody on free medical, and it was top-notch medical. It's not, and it was for the rest of their lives too. That's another story. But anyway, the bottom line is they're supposed to get the best help there is, and that included mental health. And one more quick story for you is Brandon. In Brandon's case, another side story that's interesting is one of Brandon's friends, of those 25, he didn't make it through the SEALs. He ended up, ironically, in Norfolk, Virginia, and he ended up on a ship, and he ended up in one of those bad programs I told you about, and he hated it. And he'd come hang out with Brandon on the weekend. This is a year before Brandon died. And Brandon called me up one night and said, Dad, I need your help. I'm afraid for my friend. He keeps saying he wants to hurt somebody. I'm afraid he's going to hurt somebody. So I went to the vet center. I got the information from the Norfolk area for a psychologist. I gave it to his friend. His friend called the number, and he went there, talked to them, and ironically, he was deemed suicidal, and he was processed out of the military with an honorable discharge. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is he got out for about 6 months. Then he happened to be a dual citizen, and he joined the Australian military. And he's doing very well. He's kicking butt in the Australian military right now. But more importantly, it's another fact about Brandon's command. We asked his friend, who we talk to all the time, we said, why didn't Brandon just call me? He knew how to call mental health. He knew where to go, how to do it, because you went through it. He knew he could get out with an honorable discharge. Why in the world did he not do this? Because nobody knew, his friends and family, that he was going to possibly take his own life. And he said, we talked about that. And he said, Brandon said that he was afraid his command was so screwed up that they would screw it up and he'd get a bad discharge out of it. So he couldn't do it. That's how screwed up Brandon's command was. So there you go. There's a prime example of that kid. He got out, he was going through a crisis. Obviously, he got help, ended up being discharged, got an honorable discharge, and life went on. And most people don't understand life will go on for you. I don't care what happens in the military or anywhere in life. You'll recover from it if you get help. That's what that help is. And sometimes that help is just a shoulder to cry on. It honestly is. But let me tell you, at least you have somebody there that'll list. Their job is neutral. They're not pro-military. They're not pro-you. They're there to help you deal with modern society. And modern society is different than other societies that we've been a part of in the past. And they're there to help you. And that's what you need to use to get healed on a journey to healing. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but it opens some doors for you to understand what's going on and how to handle things differently. But more importantly is, if Brandon could have gone, would have gone, first thing out of their mouths, I'm sure would have told them, your family loves you, you have friends that love you. Those people would be devastated if anything happened to you. The people you work with on a daily basis, and might not seem like they care about you, and they actually might not, but the bottom line is there are more that love you and like you than there is that don't. That's important right there. And when you're alone, away from your family, that's a big deal.
For the first time they're alone, yeah, it is.
And so, because we had to replay it, what could we have done differently and all that. And there's a lot of things we wish we would have done differently. But the key thing is we trusted our son. We had no idea he was suicidal. Matter of fact, he was checked out. He came home less than a year before he died. Get broken up. His girlfriend broke up with him. And we were worried about him. And he had gone to the vet center here. They'll see your family, by the way. If you're a veteran or retiree, they will see. You have to qualify, but the qualification has nothing to do monetary. It has to do with if you're in the wars and stuff. I was. We took him there to make sure that he wanted to be a Navy SEAL. In other words, that he was joining the Navy for all the right reasons and everything. So the psychologist knew Brandon and got to know him. And then, so we were worried. So Brandon came home on leave and we set up an appointment. And Brandon said, yeah, I'll go. And he talked to him to make sure Brandon was okay. Now, we never thought Brandon was suicidal. Like I said, we were concerned about him. And he passed with flying colors. He was found fit and everything. And the final thing, my apology for extending this, is remember that package I told you about for air crewmen? Remember I told you the command said he had to do it over again? So I wake up in the middle of the night, Brandon's dead for a month, and something's bothering me. So the next morning I call the person in charge of the entire program. And remember, I did this all the time as a counselor. Okay. And I said, why did you, I didn't even present that Brandon was dead, although I think he knew when he pulled up the name, but I could be wrong. I said, why in the world did you require him to do the package over again? I don't understand. He told me word for word, and I told this to the IG. and NCIS. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, I never said anything. And he goes in there and he says, as a matter of fact, I haven't spoken to the command since September of 2017. That is when the package was submitted. And I called them and said it was approved. And I'm sending out his orders. He said, I have not heard from them. He said, they did not call me anytime. As a matter of fact, he said, they canceled his orders without even talking to me. And he said, he did not have to redo that package. He said that package was good for a year. He did not need to redo that package. And he said they needed people like Brandon. That program, Brandon, was the hardest one. There's 8 things you could do as air crewman, and Brandon picked the hardest one of all. And less people qualify for that. They're always hurting. He could have gotten Brandon out of that command in 2 weeks. So March 28th, Brandon was found fit for duty. He could have, instead of selling candy for another month, he could have been out of that command literally right then and there. And that counselor lied, and he betrayed us in the end too, and turned his back on Brandon. And it turned out
Remy Spence.
Yeah, it turned out he was not one of the good ones at all. And he does have, as I say, blood on his hands on Brandon's death. He knows it too, because there's statements we've read that he wishes he could have done things differently. Yeah, I bet you do. So anyway, he didn't need to do the package over again. That was a complete lie. Why? Because they wanted to keep him in the command. They didn't want him to go. They want to punish the hardest, best worker. They don't want him to go. So they were trying to use this driver's license stuff as an excuse not to let him go air crewman, basically what it boiled down to. No one's ever told me that. And I'm telling you, I've been around this enough to know what these people do. And because remember, the difference between being unauthorized absence, so being late for work or not late for work is who you work for. Because if you're 1 second late for work in the military, you can be in trouble, literally. It's factual. Most of the time you won't be, but it depends on who you work for. The guy or person you work for don't like you, hates you, and you're done right there. You could actually end your whole career to be over before it ever even started. I've seen it happen too. No, I've never been a part of that, nor would I ever be. Matter of fact, I've had to go back and undo stuff like that people have done because it was wrong. And that's the thing with Brandon. None of this would have happened if somebody would have stood up, either anonymously or personally went and reported this stuff. But they didn't. They allowed it to happen. And sure enough, it led to a death by suicide or murder by suicide in the case of Brandon.
But in my opinion, Brandon himself told at least his commander, that Commander Whitmer, that things were not going well in the command because Brandon wrote a letter or typed a letter and slipped it under the CO's door, Commander Whitmer's door, and he put a copy of it in their anonymous box. And Brandon told everything that was pretty much wrong with his command. And he basically said, this is my last effort to tell you what's going on in your command. And he also requested somebody to take Rose's place. That letter went nowhere. So if anybody believes that Brandon's commanding officer, Dwayne Whitmer, did not know, I'm here to tell you, Brandon typed it up. He got the letter, and to prove it, Brandon took a picture of the printer that he printed it off of, the serial number, and the serial number of the computer, and it matches the date.
It's timestamped when he submitted it.
And it was 1 week before he died.
And the command said they didn't receive it till the day after he died.
Right.
And it wasn't mailed, it was put in the box. It's an outright lie. And then the letter he left us, I want you to read it again. If you stare at that letter, you will see that that letter is 2 different letters put together into one letter. And it's missing the guts. It doesn't flow right. It's missing it. Why would Brandon not put all the information down. Brandon was particular. So he takes a picture of serial numbers of printers and stuff, but he didn't give us the names and all the events that happened. Think about that. They kept it. They purged the letters. And again, his parents get 4 pages, but girls he doesn't even know, that claim they didn't even know him, get 10, 7, and 6 pages. So you tell us if it's us. Look at them. Tell us. Contact me if you honestly believe that it's complete. It's not. If you believe it is, let me know why, because I'd love to hear this, because it's not complete. They kept it. That was part of when they decided to lie. They had to take all the information out. And they went to his room and took the information out. And then they stole stuff off his phone, his computer. They sent it supposedly to the FBI lab. They did something and took stuff. And we had that stuff analyzed, paid a lot of money too, and they couldn't come to a conclusion 100% that nothing was taken off considering who it was, i.e. they sent it to an FBI lab. They could have had them do anything for them. I'm not saying FBI is corrupt. What I'm saying is they might have had marching orders. Remember, in national security, all this other things they hide behind, it might have been told to do this. So who knows? But they stole stuff off the computer and phone. And because Brandon would have left us with a smoking gun on these people, trust me, and they would be in trouble. And that leads up to why is that important? I had to point this out to you. So I told you I'd never let Brandon join the military. I meant that. I wasn't just joking around with the recruiters. I was serious. I'd seen change in the military. I didn't like it. Nothing like this, okay? But I saw change I didn't like. And I just didn't think that Brandon was fortunate his college could be paid for. He could do whatever he wants to. Matter of fact, the police wanted him here. And 2 of his friends that didn't make it through SEALs became Phoenix police officers. They're police officers right now here in Phoenix, Arizona. And they, but let's flash forward 8 years. So you have a 10-year-old at home. Let's flash forward 8 years. Your son or daughter wants to join the military. You said you never let them join because this would never happen to them. That's how you're going to prevent it from happening. They're not going to join. But they join. Somehow they join, whether you support them or not. They end up in. And let's just say they're in for 6 months and your doorbell rings and 2 uniformed people are there and telling you your son or daughter is dead. Okay, it happens, right? Yeah, well, look at it this way. But then they go on to tell you, turns out the same people that killed our son killed your son and daughter. How would you feel? That's why you have to stop these people and hold them accountable. They'll kill and continue to kill again. But let's take it another dramatic turn. You're at your son or daughter graduates college, they go to work for Google. Turns out that the doorbell rings again in your house and your son or daughter's dead. Turns out that their boss happened to be one of the people that killed Brandon too. They got out, retired, got a job, or they were just became a veteran and got out. How would you feel then too? You don't have a crystal ball, because I'm here to tell you, I know this will never happen to you. I get to hear it now. And I'm here to tell you, I'll never get rear-ended at a stop sign. I'll never be at fault in an accident. Our house will never be destroyed by a hurricane, tornado, nothing. Our insurance company will pay no matter what, trust me. I'm here to tell you, none of that will ever happen to me. That's what I mean. We have to live in reality. You have to understand. Until it happens to you, you don't understand. You got lucky it didn't happen to you. I don't care what straight line you walk. There are many people out there. If you're a son or daughter, if any teenager right now rear ends somebody at a stop sign and they lose a limb, or your son or daughter was drunk, their life will change for the rest of their lives. So we're all one car accident away from life-changing event. But see, that'll never happen to us. But it's happened to hundreds of thousands of people, but it won't happen to us. And it would never happen to Brandon. I mean, it won't happen. That's what I mean. Live in a world of denial. This stuff can happen to you. You need to understand this is real life. Because I'm telling you, Brandon had a shield of armor, unpenetratable. That kid, you could call him whatever you wanted to, it wouldn't even faze him. And the physique, the look, everything going for him. Small overbite on his teeth. That's it. There's nothing to criticize. So bottom line is, how they penetrated that armor, I still don't even understand it to this day. Hoping someday I could ask him when I see him again.
That's because we don't know the whole story.
Right. And
okay. No, I was going to say there's just a couple things that we missed in this. For a suicide, it took us 2 weeks to get Brandon's body back. That's one thing. A second thing is the Sky Baber, who escorted Brandon home, his last time home. He was supposed to hand the flag because we got 2 flags, one for him, one for me, at Brandon's funeral. And this guy was supposed to hand Patrick the flag. Well, the day of the funeral, the honor guard, the head honor guard person, who happened to be a lady, very nice, she was wondering where he was. And she asked Patrick, and Patrick's like, well, I haven't seen him. I have no idea. So she asked the funeral director, and she's like, well, I haven't seen him either. I haven't heard from him since he came and, quote, inspected Brandon's. He was mad because when the funeral director had strict orders from Patrick and me, the minute Brandon hits her funeral home, she was supposed to change him out of his uniform. Brandon expressed in his letter that he did not want a military funeral, which to us meant he did not want to be buried in his Navy uniform. So by the time Officer Baber got there, she had already changed him, folded his uniform neatly, put it on a chair, and he was mad that she did that. And so at the funeral, he was nowhere to be found. So the funeral director, called the command to find out where he was. Well, apparently he went back to Virginia. And she's like, why? And we assumed that it was because he was mad. Anyway, we had to have a friend of Brandon's who happened to come in her full dress uniform, and they had to teach her within minutes on how to present the flag to Patrick, and she was devastated over Brandon's death. And I guess when you're in the honor guard, you can't show any emotion at all. And she had a very hard time, but she did a really good job. So we had nobody, not one person from the Navy besides a couple of Brandon's friends. We had nobody from the command. We had nobody from Virginia at his funeral. We did not receive flowers at his funeral from any of them. No cards, nothing for sympathy, nothing from his command. So that's another thing they did to us.
And then in the article, they said that we were indeed invited to the memorial service. Outright lie, I already proved that. But to take it a step further, they say word for word when you read this. As a matter of fact, they gave him a gift. Let me tell you about this gift. In August, so 2 months after Brandon dies, a box arrives. In the box is a cranial. Cranial is what they wear on the flight line. It's signed by people in the command. That was the gift. You speak of tactful and a message to us.
It was the one he threw before he jumped into the blades. That's what they gave us.
That's the fact. That was a message from them. Go ahead, try and mess with us.
Yep.
That was the gift that they talked about. And what's funny is these lies I told you about, to this day, there's never a comment in any article. The reporters always try to get the other side.
Yeah.
They have to. They want balance, right? No one will talk to them. They won't talk to them because they know they'll incriminate themselves. And because we know so much about everything. So yeah, no flowers, nothing.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry for your loss, nothing. It's like nobody cared. I mean, we did come across people like 6 months ago that, I mean, there was a couple of people that were in bed for a week. They were sick. They liked Brandon a lot. They were following the command's orders. I don't agree with that. I just let you know that. However, they were telling the true story. I do know that. And, you know, it's not like we went to them personally and said, we need some information. And they told us no, there was nothing. We stayed out of it. They were ordered to stay out of it. They honestly believe those people are going to do something terrible to them if they came forward. And again, you'll find that common theme on a lot of places. That's a bad excuse though, because I'm here to tell you, if any of this happened at command I was in, I'd find a way to get the information out. You could do anonymous to press, letters, the military, everything. There are ways to get that information, because toxic abuse of leadership and abuse of power cannot rise unless you allow it. Allowing it to. See, most commands, it doesn't rise because there's checks and balances. There's good people in there. They stop it. And that's where the problem lied in Brandon's command. And then ironically, Brandon, this is factual, a year before Brandon got there, they were the best command on the waterfront, literally. And then all those people left and all the bad groups took over. And that's how the perfect storm happened with Brandon. It's a shame, because if any of those people just happened to would have stayed, or maybe, you know, some things would have been different, this would have never happened, because they wouldn't have allowed it. It's just all the gatekeepers left, and you're stuck with the rest that were bad. And the bad apples, unfortunately, do bad things. I mean, it's great to make mission, and making missions important, but I'm here to tell you that's why the Brand Act shines too, is you're lying saying you're 95% or higher mission ready, and you're not, because those people are not mentally ready to go, all of them. It's really a lower percentage. That's why commands don't want anybody to know they have people that are hurting or whatever. That's why they don't want you to know, because then the percentage will go down. This command looks bad. When I say command, the commanding officer. And in the military, no matter what, doesn't matter how it happens. If somebody's home on leave and they get in a car accident, someone else is at fault, dies, that's the commanding officer's fault. That's the way the military is done. Yet in Brandon's case, it wasn't the commanding officer's fault. They did nothing to hold him accountable. And then if you look at all these Gold Star families, you'll go back in time and see, and there's hundreds of thousands of them, sad to report to you. None of them were held accountable. None of them. And even the Vanessa stuff, don't get me wrong, there was a positive, those people were fired, but being fired and transferred is no different than moving a priest that did something that they weren't supposed to do. That's all it was. But don't get me wrong, would have loved to have that happen to Brandon stuff. It didn't. So Vanessa stuff, that's great that that happened, but those people to this day are not held accountable. And if you listen to the mom, she'll tell you they're not, and she wants them held accountable. And obviously we all know why. I'm just saying they're not held accountable. So you speak of having a license to kill and how to get away with murder right there. I don't know how it could even happen, but it does, because, sorry, you hold one person accountable, a lot of this stuff will end. Just take one. Well, Dwayne Whitmore, you throw that guy in jail right now, I guarantee you it'll all change. One person. That's all it'll take. That's why those ship collisions, they were going to hold those COs accountable. They were this close to doing it and they backed away. Had they done it, sorry, it would have changed everything. But it did change something, because you notice how there hasn't been any collisions? You know why? They're going to tell you they changed things. They didn't change anything. I'm telling you right now, when I went to bed at night on the ship, it was impossible to hit something. I'm serious. Unless something went wrong, but there was backup systems, so even that couldn't happen. Yet it happened twice in a month. And so those COs are responsible for it. I'm not going to deny that. But what made no more collisions since then. There was no changes put in place. The Navy, I'll tell you, there was. What it was is the fact that they almost took these people to jail. And all these commanding officers know. So now when they allow somebody to drive the ship, they can drive it blindfolded. So they raise the bar on the qualification, which means those people are top-notch qualified people like they should be. And they know exactly what to do no matter what. And then the CO, I guarantee when he goes to sleep at night, he says, if something comes within 50 yards, 5,000 yards, you come wake me up. I'll guide us through or whatever. That's what changed, accountability. And that is how in America today, we change things, holding people accountable. And more importantly, we, like in Arizona, you've heard about it. We have these wrong way drivers. Apparently it's a lot of elderly people, but most of the time they're drunk or drugs or something. They had a few deaths. They went out and they put some systems in place and they did all kinds of changes. Don't get me wrong. We still have high numbers. The point is they acted and responded immediately. Do you know what the military has done with that percentage since 2015 on the suicide? Nothing. They have a whole suicide prevention department that makes more money than us 5 here combined. And one person does, and they've done absolutely nothing. Nothing. Like I said, hotlines are great. But again, hotline is only preventative. We need preventative. They're great things, but that is not, you could have, the military has more than the United States combined. It's not working. When it's not working, what do? We adjust, we change.
We fix it.
But the only people that can get things fixed, history shows we the people. So we the people went to Congress. We the people got the Brandon Act passed, got the Vanessa Act passed. We didn't, but others did. And that is how you implement change. And that there's more to be done on that. Again, we're making a positive out of a negative. I mean, believe me, we wish it wasn't our son. We're actually mad that someone didn't do this before us. I'm not going to deny that to you, but unfortunately, there's nothing we could do. So we started something. We want others to finish it, meaning continue on. We'll continue on, and they need to continue and never give up and fight for what's right. And like I said, DOD don't own you. You don't work for them, and you have every right to hold them accountable. And but more importantly, you have every right to know the truth. If you feel you're getting the truth, then fine. There are those that do get the truth. They're out there, but most of the time you're not. And you know what the sad part is? We went to a Gold Star family meeting years ago. Somehow this was not supposed to happen. It did. They went around the table asking how their son or daughter died, and all these people were telling. Every one of them, except one, I could tell you right now that the command was involved in by their story, how it was. I knew exactly what happened, and there's two logics to that. If you roll out the red carpet for them, I tell you, you're being set up. You're being lied to and set up. So those people is automatic. There was hardly anybody that they thought the command was great and everything. Yeah, they were great, all right, because they were covering up a murder. That's why they were great. And they wanted it to go away. They didn't want no articles, bad press. In our case, they knew, me being retired, who I was, where I worked, in my background, that they were in for the fight of their lives. So they set up everything in their favor, where everything was going to work against us, because they knew that the press is hard to get the help. And they put all these roadblocks in our way. And we maneuvered around them and kept going. And that's what I recommend all of you to do too. And again, if you need any help, we're here to help at all times. Matter of fact, we have good news
About?
Brandon Foundation.
Oh yeah. We created the Brandon Caserta Foundation, and we're just going to continue what we're doing. And hopefully we have, we get donations to where we can fly the families out if they're service members struggling. That's one thing that we're hoping to be able to do. If they can't go, then Patrick and I would go just ask support for them, to let them know that they have support. We have a lot of ideas, but obviously we'll we'll need donations, but that's one of the major things that we would like to do. So we did create that, and that should be up and running here shortly. I've just got to get everything going. But yeah, that's exciting. So
Amazing.
I guess we're done on our part.
Yeah,
What do you guys have?
sorry to be long-winded.
Yeah.
You wanted
What
this.
about your website?
Like I
What's
said,
your- What is your
Yeah.
website?
We've got the brandonact.org, and it'll be the Brandon Caserta Foundation.org as well. That hasn't been up yet. We're just new at this, so I haven't created the website for that yet. So yeah, you can find everything about the Brandon Act on the brandonact.org site, which has Brandon's letters and all the FOIAs and the investigations. If you want to look at the articles and news clips, that's on there too. The actual Brandon Act wording is on there, pictures of Brandon. That's on the brandonact.org site.
So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Oh my goodness. How amazing is this that we could sit here together and link arms and be like this chain, this unbroken chain. Be stronger than our adversaries, much stronger. I wanted to say, you guys are so incredible. What an amazing team you guys are. I'm so grateful for you guys in so many different ways, but I just can't, I just think of Brandon and I think about your whole little family unit and how sweet you guys are. None of us expected to have a child die on a base in the United States. So many of these non-combat deaths are, they're
Unfathomable.
They are unfathomable, but they're not all the same.
Right.
But yet there is a common theme that runs through all of them.
Yes.
And I wanted to say that I'm always astounded every single time you tell about how the command treated you personally. And Patrick, you talked about rolling out the red carpet, well, I had that experience, the bamboozling. And by the way, I call it fruit salad, because that's all it is to me. It's an ego boost for the guys that are in that 30% that you're talking about, right? The 30% of the commands that are toxic, that are abusive, that are lazy and shirk their responsibility, like in my son's case, right? Lazy, toxic, abusive, they care more about their own ego boost than they do about, or purposely abusing, like what they did to Brandon. Like he could have already been gone and out of there.
Yep, exactly.
And look what they did. They stole his time. They stole his life. And Brandon was a serious soldier. When I say soldier, pardon me, I have to retrain my brain here. Sailor, right? He was serious. Like he'd been serious for his entire life. It sounded like, there's pictures of Brandon that I have burned in my brain of of him as this little bitty boy with this sailor hat on, you know, like just absolutely precious. I think of the link between our two sons and the fact that Caleb was, you know, he always had wanted to be a soldier man, you know, and, he ended up being a 91 Lima track line mechanic. And he, like, one of the first, it's funny, the first whatever vehicles he ever talked about as a little boy was a backhoe, you know. And so here he comes, you know, and it's just amazing. The preparation, the Amat Victura Curum that went into preparing these young men for what they wanted to do, their ambition, their drive, their, you know. And if I think of Brandon, you know, and I think of Caleb, like Caleb's desire was to take care of, protect, defend, extend a helping hand. And like, there's so many things that if I like that I see in Brandon that I also see in Caleb. There's just something, a common theme of this beautiful, valiant, you know, service member, patriot that just wants to protect and defend their country and everyone else. Right. Human kindness. I actually was writing a list of things that were coming up in this conversation, and this what you guys were saying about your son, and human kindness was the very first thing that I wrote down. I also said dedicated, that Brandon was very dedicated even before he I mean, even his dad was like, no, I don't want you to be, you know, I don't want you to do that. I want you to go to college, you know. And Brandon, in his mind, he's like ticking away. He's like, I knew exactly what I want to do. He's dedicated to that dream and that drive, that ambition. And then he was highly qualified. Highly qualified. I mean, it's just, I've heard this story before, Brandon's story before, and I hate to call it story, but I've heard you speak about him before, and like, but I guess, you know, it's always new every time I hear the story again, but just like all the different qualifications that he had and that he wanted to get, and that he was wanting to pursue, is astounding. And just like Patrick was mentioning, you know, there's not very many people that were qualified to do that particular job, you know. And then crushed dreams.
Absolutely.
And he never got over that bell ringing. He never got over that. And I, when he brung it up, I really didn't even know what to say anymore. Right? There was nothing to say. I really thought that, I mean, I could have gotten him back in the seat. I forgot that part. And we were there, we went there. And I could have gotten him back in. And he looked me in the face, he said, you know, Dad, there's no doubt in my mind you can get me back in. He says, I'll start up, I'll heal, I'll start, I'll go again. But he said, Dad, they'll never let me get through. He would know. He would know. There was nothing I could do. He'd know.
And to think of how they abused him on purpose.
Yeah.
With the sole purpose to poke him. Like that.
That broke.
It's yeah, the fact that he, like, there's still, you know, like you said, there was it, who was it that stole his money? It was, you know, he's a felon and he's out there and he's like running around like leading soldiers still.
Yeah.
Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that
is leading soldiers that stole. he instead of getting sent to prison or whatever, serving some time, whatever, for being a felon, he gets promoted. And
common theme. That's usually what happens. And the sad part is that these people, they are not the top-notch people. They may get promoted, but they're not top-notch. They're dirty. They're doing illegal stuff to get to where they're going, and they are not the best of the best. They're not even close to it. It's just that they know how to use the system and use people to get what they want. It's all about them. It's not about a team. Everything that you think you're part of.
Yeah. It's bamboozling at its best.
Yeah.
It's all about ego and their own personal journey. And then, I was, after his crushed dreams, he's driven to suicide. Like you said, like what you didn't ever pick up on any of those signs from him. He was always trying to help other people. But for somebody like Brandon, like you said, you guys knew him better than anybody, and you knew what he could withstand and handle and push through. And there was nothing that was going to cause him to ring that bell. For him to be driven to suicide, like for somebody like Brandon, that'd be like somebody like Caleb. Like, I would tell you right now, there's no way in hell that Caleb would ever do something like that. But I sit here and I say that. And then I think about Brandon. You can't ever know.
No.
You can't ever know. But I love what you guys are doing. The fact that you would care so much about our service members, that you would fly out to take care of somebody else's child, somebody else's beloved son or daughter. What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful act of human kindness. And you know what? That's what Brandon wanted. He wanted justice, not just for himself, but he wanted justice for others. And he wanted to make sure other service members are protected on their own territory, and that they can get the help they need when they need it without any trouble.
Retaliation, yeah. Right.
Retaliation. I mean, oh my goodness.
Exactly.
And the stories that you don't know that drove him to what he did. And I look at Brandon, and I've told you this before, Terry, that I think he's a hero.
I do too.
I believe that he is a hero. I believe that he got his next assignment, just like my son, Caleb. And that they are leading the command up there, whether you believe in heaven or Valhalla. And they are leading the way on, we are on the front lines on a war and a battle that we never knew existed.
Right.
We don't have all the soldiers in foreign lands like we did. And now, how do they explain 75% of our soldiers dying under non-combat deaths, and 93% of those on U.S. soil?
Yeah.
How do you explain it? And I like what Practic said. He said, you need this. You need the Brandon Act. You said it so beautifully, Patrick. I even wrote it down. I'm trying to remember where I even wrote it in my message.
Well, Brandon's top-notch worker. Matter of fact, Bros used to, several people told me what I'm about to say. So Brandon would do his work. He'd go back to Bros, or he'd ask for more work. Bros would give him more work to do. Brandon would finish that work, go help others complete all their work, and then go back and ask for more work. And you know what Bros would say to him? He'd say, why don't you go make yourself useful somewhere else? Can you imagine that? You told me, how can somebody not need mental health help after? I mean, here you are, the best, hardest worker in the command, and you're being treated that way. Imagine how many Brandoners are out there.
I think about the young ladies and the other folks that he wrote. Like, I had some jaw-dropping moments there when you guys were talking about his friends that he wrote to. Pardon me. And they, pardon me. But I did have some jaw-dropping moments, literally, apparently. I can't understand why these people would like basically abandon him even after all of this. Like, I mean, I do think that people sometimes are in fear, maybe for whatever reasons, they might be in fear of speaking out. But I mean, like, I know for sure, like, there have been people that were gag ordered in Caleb's situations. I mean, I have the proof of that. You know, you can't argue with the proof. The thing is that when they write these investigations, they don't have proof. They give, like, you know, approximately, or this, or maybe, or perhaps, or, you know, they use terms like that, and it's like, that's not truth. That's
Right.
Maybe. So unless you can prove it, then I mean, that's how we all work on the civilian world here. Talking about proof here.
And they redact the truth. If somebody's telling them the truth, they redact it.
I read that last night in Caleb's CID investigation. I couldn't help but notice there were some things that I had missed before that were not just names, but it was information that was redacted. It's like, whoa, I you know, it's why it's so important to read through these documents over and over again. But it does take some, it's a definitely hard on the heart.
Yes.
To walk through this. And I mean, you guys I mean, I'm so grateful for you, Terry. You have been like a life net, a safety net to me. After Caleb died, I would have never known where to even start. I mean, I knew right after Caleb had passed away, like, there were some really weird things about his death. You mentioned before, Terry, that, you know, when they come in and they notify you, that they tell you, you know, like how your service member died, but unfortunately, that's not what happened in my son's case. You know, we weren't told, and actually, I was thinking about it, like, I think it took about 9 months until we got his autopsy back.
That's a long time.
I want you to talk about his belongings, though. You haven't mentioned his belongings.
Oh,
in the boxes. It took me 6 months to get Caleb's belongings. But when I think about what happened to Brandon's belongings, it just infuriates me.
The pictures are on the site. They were all destroyed. They weren't packed properly, meaning they weren't packed at all. They're just thrown in boxes. They've been reopened, closed, taped, and opened. They were looking for something, and they probably found whatever they were looking for, and whatever that is, I can't tell you. But they were never secure. The stuff was never secure. It was like in a hallway there, we were told. It was never in a secure place, and they were going in and out of it. They were looking, obviously, for evidence of things that were going to incriminate them. And I think some of it we led them to.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then NCIS, they're so good that there was another letter that Brandon left. You can call it a letter. It was on a notepad, and the actual original one was in the stuff. It was hidden in between papers. You'd have to go through every paper. We went through everything, and we found it, and they didn't even know about it. They acted like they did. They did not. They would have never allowed it to ship. Right. They would have kept it with the other stuff. And they didn't. And then like I said, the boxes were destroyed. Things were damaged. was it a Windex bottle leaked in there? A movie company won't even, a Windex bottle would have to be wrapped up. They might not even move it.
Yeah, why would they ship that?
That's what I mean. And they just threw it in a box. They put no effort into it whatsoever. And you're entitled to a move, meaning the military pays for you to have it properly pack and move you no matter what. And it doesn't matter what rank you are. And yeah. And then we have pictures of it. And then what was funny is the casualty assistance officer came over. He witnessed it. He was here before the truck arrived. And he didn't tell us this, but I know he came. He knew what it was going to look like. Like I said, that command tried their best to get him in trouble. And all he was doing is telling the truth. And he knew how it was going to arrive. They both knew that the command was corrupt. And from what we had told them, what they heard, what they witnessed. But but accountability is a big thing. This is not over. When I say this, meaning we'll see. I mean, we were on two different paths, justice and the Brandon Act. We focused on the Brandon Act. Now we can focus on the justice. I do know, I am convinced, I don't mean this facetious, sounds sarcastic, but I'm serious. What did I read on the riots? I liked it. The FBI said, expect a knock at your door if you were involved in the riot. Well, in this case, those 13 expect a knock at your door. No one ain't going to be me. But if we have our way, it'll be the FBI. And if it's the FBI, where it gets interesting is, go ahead, lie to them like you did already. Lie about those statements. Just for lying to them, you're going to jail. And I'm going to laugh because somebody's going to start telling the truth or they're going to jail. That's the way I see it. Will that happen? Meaning, will we get to that point? I don't know, but who would ever thought we'd get the Brandon Act passed?
Right.
So,
Well, like you said, people like that can only rise and function if they're allowed to.
Yeah.
and they need to be held accountable so they don't kill again, because they will kill again and again. Matter of fact, there's no way to research this, but I'd love to know how many others they killed before Brandon,
Right.
yet alone after Brandon.
And we do know that Bros, once he got to his HSC 7, we were told that he was bragging to his sailors because he's in the same position as he was in HSC 28, bragging about how he drove one of his sailors to suicide to his new command. And they found him guilty of UCMJ Article 93, cruelty and maltreatment, and nothing was done. Nothing.
And that's simple. Why nothing was done is because he has the dirt on the other 12. And that's why they didn't do anything, because he's got the goods on them, trust me. And he knows what they did, how they covered it up. He's got it all, probably has it recorded, pictures, whatever. And they knew that they were stuck, because I would have, at a minimum, I would have nailed him at a minimum. And he'd be easy to nail, don't get me wrong. He is the most guilty of all. And then what's funny is, this is factual. Now I'm going back to the mid 80s, but my first two commands, ironically, they were ships. I'm here to tell you, those two ships I was on, they were top notch. The commanding officers that were there, someone like Bros checked into their command, they'd be sent away. I'm not kidding either. Well, I've seen people sent away. If they had a history of that garbage or anything that was bad, they had to leave. They were gone. The CO wouldn't take them. That's how things used to be. The top-notch people go to the top-notch commands and everything. But they would never be allowed on a command again. They would never let them be there. In other words, they don't meet the criteria to be in that command. That's basically what that's saying. You don't have the standards to be here.
Well, that kind of brings me to this point, Patrick, because you have been a recruiter. You're a recruiter for many years. What do you think? Do you think that the quotas are too high? I feel like the quota is just way too high. Like why aren't we just like not really trying to find the best, person for the job?
Well, ironically, what happened is when I first joined, all the way up to about I'd say 90, we'll call it 98, it was hard to get people to stay in. They were getting out. The job market was good, but people were doing their time getting out. So retention was not where it needed to be. And then retention, they started getting better pay, started getting more benefits, things of that nature. A lot of the Vietnam era people had retired, so advancement was better, and retention started going through the roof, and it was good. So recruiting quotas went down. Retention was there. They raised the bar on recruiting, meaning every time recruiting is good, they keep raising the bar higher and higher, the standards. But since then, what happened is a lot of people, the military has got a bad reputation that we may think, and others we talk to may like the military, but there's hundreds of thousands, millions of people out there that don't like the military, and they know not necessarily what we just talked about, but they know the truth about the military. And so they're not letting their kids join. But notice how nobody in Congress, their son or daughter is not in the military. None of them. It used to be the standard. Anybody that has any kind of money will never let their son or daughter join. And they'll mortgage their house to no end and send their kids to college to avoid it. So the retention numbers are based upon how many people stay in, or excuse me, it's based upon retention, the recruiting numbers. So the bottom line is, because of the recession, they lucked out, but a lot of people got out, a lot of good people got out, and they're replaced with people not the same caliber, I'll word it that way. But as far as the quotas, they're not bad. It's just a matter of, if you took care of people and did what people think the military did, and it was true teamwork and everything, and you looked out for people like the fire department does there, and it would be different. But a lot of people know about this. Because think about all the people that serve, like me. I'm not going to let my son join. There's a lot of me's out there, a lot of them, and they don't. And so, like I said, I always regret that I did. Terry, always reminds me he would have hated me. But the bottom line is, I knew Brandon's excuse for college was going to be that I never went to college. So I deliberately, when I retired, went to college. Arizona State University.
I love that.
It was tough, but I did it for him in hopes that.
Back at you, Brandon.
There you go. And then I even raised the bar for him because I got 2 degrees and a minor and everything through Arizona State University. And I thought I had it. This military thing came out of nowhere. But like I told you, I'm here to tell you, I put up and had a lot of bad things happen to me. I've had good and bad. And some days are better than others, but we are not killing our own. There's no way. I don't know how that happened. And to be honest, dude, the only thing in recruiting we really had at the time were the Navy Times. I used to read it like clockwork. There was not that many stories of this nature in there, if any. And the truth be said, I probably didn't want to know this was going on because I was in recruiting. But word was not out. And they capitalized, like they do with the red carpet there, on you not knowing these numbers. And these numbers are not accurate. Remember, some of these numbers are actual homicides that they say are suicides and things of that nature.
Yes.
And then there's a lot we don't even know about. They class it other things. And so we don't know the true numbers. Same thing with the veterans. We don't know the true numbers. With the VA reports and all that, we depend on the VA to report this stuff. People that don't use the VA go nowhere near it. How do we know that they were a veteran unless the obituary said it by the family or something? You don't even know. And so the numbers are not accurate. They're higher than they are. And we know this. But their excuse of suicide's a complex problem is a joke because they want it to be a complex problem because they don't care. They act like it's cost of doing business. But I will tell you this, as great as the Brandon Act is, there's there's a program that was here in it originated in Arizona here to the Arizona Coalition of Military Families. It's called Be Resilient. And that program, they started that, I think the Arizona National Guard led the nation in suicides. I think they had 10 in 2008, 2009, I think they had 13. In 2010, they implemented the Be Resilient program, the Arizona Coalition. For 39 consecutive months, there was 0 suicides, 0. Think about the time frame. Okay, this is before your 2015 marker. It was 0. It's impossible to have 0, but it's great, right? A new general comes in, he dismantles the program. He specifically goes on the record and says, it's the cost of doing business and suicides are the casualty of training. He just took out the program, the numbers went back up, and nobody cared to this day. The coalition's been trying to work with them to get it back in. It wouldn't do it. You know, other than good training that they were providing on everyone that was in charge of that program worked because they had a person had to answer directly to the general that ran the program. So if the program was not being done properly or a commanding officer was not taking it seriously, or one could say if you had any suicides, or they did, they were not getting the top marks and stuff, so they were not advancing. And so that's how they monitored that program. One person answered to the general, so you were forced to do it. And it was so simple, but that's how it was. But that program existed, and DOD specifically told Congress on the Brandon Act, the one year they took it out, they said, we don't want this. They said it's not proven. There's nothing to back it up. We want something proven by fact. So we told them about this. They laughed at us. They don't even believe that it was true. And it's a factual story, I'm telling you. Matter of fact, I found the article on it. It was in a veterans paper because they've been trying to get it back because it was so, it's the only thing that ever worked. And it was simple. This was nothing different than you see on TV with the fire department. People taught to care. You named it, compassion, all those things were taught. That doesn't mean that people are not held accountable, or if they do something wrong, they're not held accountable, but they actually looked out for each other, and it changed the culture.
Well, you know, so many of our service members are from so many different walks of life, you know, and I think you mentioned before, you talked about, you know, I mean, Brandon, like these kids are really young, and that's like their first time out of the house and out of the home, you know. We're missing like this, you know, I kind of vamp on the creeds, the Army values, you know. You guys probably have your own, right?
Yes, of course.
They're so beautifully written. They're beautifully written. If they would only live by them.
Imagine how much money somebody got to write that. Imagine how much money somebody made to write that, even though it's all air. It's not, they don't live by it.
It's beautiful.
Hey, I bought into all that. Like I said, I did 22 years, but I did what I had to, you know, ensure that my family could live a decent life and everything. And I put up with a lot of stuff, but like I said, they weren't killing people in the commands I was in. They weren't killing their own. And then sexual harassment, assault, it was non-existent where I worked. And what I mean is the places I was in charge of, no one ever reported any, as in it was not going on. I know it was not going on, but it was taken serious too. People knew that they not to do that. You're not going to get away with it. You're not, and you're not getting the benefit of the doubt, meaning that this stuff is serious stuff here. And I don't know. I don't know what happened. I just know that the military allowed it, and we should hold the top accountable. I'm telling you, they should be held accountable. And if make me a senator today, I'll take care of it. I joke around. I joke around with the senators. I meant it too. It's a joke, but it's serious. You make me a senator, I'd have Dwayne Whitmore in front of me at parade arrest, and I'd be giving him a piece of my mind. I'd be holding him accountable. And if he even looked at me wrong, I'd have Secret Service take him away in handcuffs, and you'd never see him again. And I ain't joking, because these guys need to be held accountable.
That's exactly right.
And that's how you fix things, is accountability.
Yep.
And you can't be afraid of DOD. Letting DOD have whatever they want is wrong. I know that we need money to fight and all that, but giving them whatever they want, if they can't fix suicide, then they cannot fight a war.
I mean, think about how much it costs to train our service members. Like you mentioned before. I mean, like look at all of the money that is being spent on advertisements.
The candy selling thing, waste fraud.
Candy selling. That is absolutely insane. Look at how highly qualified Brandon was.
They defended
it. Candy.
Yep. And they defended it to the IG, and I laughed when I read that.
They should be embarrassed.
I wholeheartedly agree. And like I said, if Brandon hadn't gone to school and everything, or if Brandon just did it for 90 days, the conversation wouldn't be like it is. Okay. Even though he shouldn't have done it a day, but if he would have done it 90 days and that's it, we're talking Brandon almost did it for 2 years. That's total waste, fraud, and abuse.
It's like they were making him a jester.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
And what happened is Brandon got good at it. So they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to pull this plug. You're going to do this. And then, oh, by the way, because you did so well at candy, you got to go air crewman. That's not fair. I mean, you're not supposed to do good at selling candy. You're not supposed to work. You're not actually supposed to shine. You're supposed to be a dirtbag, you know? And it's like, he didn't know any way. He did everything. He was perfection. He'd find ways to do things better. That was Brandon's specialty. He'd find a way to do it better. That he was an expert at that. Ironically, I was similar. Brandon was better than me because he dealt in modern society. But he found a way to make things work better and improve it. Because they always say, be the change. Brandon was the change.
Yes. And look at what he's doing now. The Brandon Act.
Yeah, he's smiling about that, I guarantee.
Heck yeah, man.
But
we love you, Brandon.
On the flip side, you know, day one that I can remember, we were raised about God, religion, one calls them faith. We're taught there's a heaven and a hell. We were taught all this stuff. I had to assume, I'm not being that we were taught it, that means it's true. So all I know is Brandon is waiting at the gates right now.
Yeah.
And 13 people are going to try to come that way. I assure you, Brandon's going to have fun with them.
Well,
so even if you want to submit and say,
nice to him.
there you go.
Yeah, man.
And even if they want to submit, they're going to hell. I know people say that. I know we've all may have said that at one time or another. If we do bad things, I'm going there anyway. Well, you never met Brandon.
Okay.
Because when you cross somebody that cares and truly loves people for who they are and doesn't care what you are, stand by. And then what he did to us, I mean, Brandon, one thing I honestly say about Brandon, you read this in the letters. I mean, he loved us. We loved him. Factual. We're the Three Musketeers. What he's witnessed, these people do to us, oh boy, are they going to pay. Him. Oh,
because he has endurance and he's highly qualified.
And
he has human kindness. He has honor. He has integrity. And Brandon is a shining star of an example of empathy. And just like the perfect sailor, you know?
It's a story to use to help others. And that's where it's important. It'll save lives. And it's a sad story I'm going to not deny it. And we had to start somewhere, because I will tell you, there are stories as sad as Brandon and sadder out there, and they're legitimate. There's Gold Star families all over the place.
Like Heather herself.
Yes. But we had to start somewhere. We used Brandon's story to start. Somebody had to start what we started. And we need to use that story along with the others to educate the public so they know. Because that's the thing, is when you sit down, like right now, I know we don't have a ton of friends by any means, but if you're sitting down with your friends at dinner one time, you haven't seen in a while, and their son or daughter's in the military, and they start saying their son or daughter's having a hard time, you let it go in one ear out the other. I know how it works. And you move on from it. Now you need to listen. And when they tell you that, you need to immediately tell them, you need to call them, or we need to call them and make sure they're okay, and tell them that we love them and that we're here, and that whatever you need, whatever we got to do, it's not a joke anymore. It's real. And that's the whole thing. But it's coming to a point where I think that the numbers are going to go up, because a lot of people are going to get out because of all this. There's a lot of people that get out now once they see what it was really like. So it's kind of like they were sold like Private Benjamin, the movie, and they get out when they can. They do their time and get out. And Brandon planned on doing that. He was going to Air Crewman to get out of there, and it was a necessary evil for him to get out of there. So he was going to have to do more time. But Brandon was going to do his time and get out unless something changed. And it could have, but that's the bottom line. But you don't know how many of these people have called us with these stories.
Yes.
I mean, what was it? A kid, what was it? Somebody made a dental appointment for him. He didn't know about it, so he didn't go. And they took him to captain's mask for it. Yeah. And he didn't even know about the appointment. And they took him. That's what I mean. That's the kind of commands that cause these problems. And this happened after Brandon died in Norfolk, Virginia. I joke around, it's in the water. Your deaths are coming out of Norfolk. These stories are coming out of Norfolk. If you compare it to San Diego, which is the second largest naval base in the world, they're not even close. Norfolk has all this. It's like in the water or something over there. I don't know. Maybe something is wrong in that place. But to have the guts to be able to continually do this stuff when all these stories are out there and all these articles, it is amazing to me. But that shows the arrogance of these officers and how powerful we allow them to be.
Unbelievable. Absolutely. I mean, every day my jaw just drops even further, if that's even possible. You know?
Yeah.
You know, I see the same thing. I thought I saw, boy, did I think I saw. And then even when Brandon died, as tragic as that was, after he died, all the things I witnessed, I wish I wouldn't have seen when I did.
One of the things that really just shakes me to the core is when you guys talked about the people on the flight line and how everybody ran. That to me displays such cowardice.
It does.
Like, and we expect these people to go over and protect us, like in some catastrophe, you know, they're going to run to the catastrophe and not away from the catastrophe, you know, and here they run away and they didn't even offer help of any kind. Like nobody tackled him. They just, again, further proves the point of the jester. This, like, yeah. I'm gonna make a fool out of him. Look at him, look what's going on. I don't know. It's just, I can't even understand how that even was permitted to happen. Thinking about what Patrick said about the distance and everything.
Well, it took what was it? They had the flight line people. Oh, Brandon for a long time kept using the terminology, everybody in the command hates me. And I said that before when I was in the junior range, so you know, it's not uncommon to hear that. But he was so serious about it.
Mhm.
And if you read the letters to those girls, he's thanking them for being his friend. Now, none of those three girls were on the fight line at the time, but it just makes you wonder, did they allow this to happen? I mean, that's what I mean. No first aid, nothing. And he went from the tarmac to the morgue. He never went to the hospital.
Not like they said, yeah.
And never went there. Tarmac to the morgue. Never even went to the hospital. Wasn't pronounced dead by a doctor, nothing. So they left him there. Matter of fact, they left him there. They forgot about it. Some girl was taking the garbage out and remind him that he was out there. And then remember I told you, I called the quarterdeck. They laughed. They said things have calmed down. Yeah, that's because Brandon was dead and everything had calmed down.
And
That's
they
why-
laughed.
Yeah. It's me, retired Navy. I said, I'll never forget. I'm meaning the way they treated me, my family, the flag thing, the commanding officer, the executive, all those people. I'll never forget it. But again, our job now is to prevent bad things from happening. And that's what we do. And that's what we're going to do.
Heck yeah.
If we do that, we could put toxic abusive leadership at bay, and we can get less deaths, and we can help people and teach them. Because I say toxic abusive leadership, seek it out and destroy it. That's it. Seek, destroy, seek, destroy. It'll never rise if you seek and destroy it as it's happening. And that'll do it, because that'll put an end to it. And once you put an end to that, then you might end up being part of an organization that you're proud of and treats you well and looks out for you, or at least you have the feeling they do. And having that feeling sometimes is enough.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I believe that I'd be taken care of and never be in trouble and all that other stuff. And I seen things that would floor you, things that I can't believe happened, even things to me. And I was like Brandon, you know, I was top notch. I was the top notch by far. I have the medals to prove it. But it's these things are, I don't know. We can't have this, and we can't look away and can't deny that it's happening. And it's what comes first. Like I said, safety. Safety comes first. Safety saves lives. If that's a priority, then Brandon and the others, a lot of them shouldn't be dead. And the other thing is, suicide is personal. And Brandon had none of the things. You know, it's money, alcohol, liquor, gambling, relationship breakup. Remember, it was a year before he died. His girlfriend broke up.
Oh, that's such a good point.
All these things, and he was checked out by a psychologist, like I said, when I secretly, I guess one could say, but he was fine. He had none of those things for suicide, none of them, not one of them fit Brandon, and so many others too. That's why these parents are so shocked, because it doesn't make sense. And, you know, there were times I expected Brandon to come home. I expected to come home one day from the grocery store or something, but Brandon was going to be here. I'm telling you right now. And of course, I'd take him back and fix everything the best I could and all that. But I expected him to come home, but I never in a million years, because he had it made here. That where we live, it was a new house. He had the whole side of the house was his. He had his own room. He had 2 rooms. His own video game room. He had privacy over there, his own bathroom, you name it. He had something to come home to. And he could have gone to school, didn't have to work, nothing. Could have gone to college. All he had to do was be a student. And the police wanted him. He could have been a police officer. Like I said, his 2 friends made it through. I know Brandon would have made it through. He had recommendations to be a police officer from being in programs with the police and riding with them. And he wanted to do SWAT. Again, that's hard, like the SEALs, don't get me wrong, but it can be done. And what's ironic is, well, this is nationwide now, but the Phoenix police, their hiring outlook is tremendous, meaning he would have been not only hired, but it would have been a good career, advancement, everything.
Mm-hmm. Yet he felt hopeless.
Yes,
And there was no reason that, like you said, no alcohol, drug abuse. There was no, precursor to toxic precursor other than them,
Right.
other than his leadership that drove him literally to take his own life.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. But
here we go. We're moving forward. We're heading north. We're free climbing.
Yep.
We are on the front lines of a battle that persists, and we are Gold Star families and veterans that are saying no. We are not going to let it persist. We are drawing a line, and we are standing up for our families. We're standing up for our children, our community. We're standing up for our servicemen and women, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough, and we see, and we cannot look away.
Right.
Just like Patrick said.
we are going
to hunt. We are going to, I want to say, hunt you down.
Seek and destroy.
Here's the deal. We are going to educate you about what is happening in these non-combat deaths. We can't hold you accountable unless you're educated. So we're educating you guys. So this is what Locked and Loaded Diaries is all about. We're here to educate you guys. We're also here to advocate and to allow other families and veterans to have a voice. And oh my goodness, I feel like I've taken up a lot of the conversation, but Kimberly, thank you so much for being a part of Locked and Loaded Diaries. This is your baby. What am I talking about? This is your baby. Locked and Loaded Diaries. Is she there? She's
Terry. Yeah, I'm
there. You
here.
are.
Terry, Patrick, thank you for sharing your story with us, your pain, the tragedy, Brandon's tragedy, your tragedy, the Navy's tragedy. Yes. He was a super trooper. They screwed up royally. They killed a fine sailor.
They did.
And they should be holding people accountable for that. And it infuriates me that the command, the gall of them, like calling the CAOs and telling them to lie to you, like, who the hell do they think they are?
Love the law.
But obviously, obviously their commands are allowing that. The higher we go, they know what's happening too.
Yep.
The leaders outside of HSC 28.
Yep.
Your courage and your selfless service amazes me, because this pain could have, really just killed you, and your survivors, your fighters, and now Brandon's legacy will be forever known through the Brandon Act and the Brandon Caserta Foundation. So now it's justice time.
Yes.
And we're totally going to be rooting for you. And we will hopefully sooner than later, we'll bring you back so you can tell everybody what you've accomplished.
That'll be
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah,
That would
thank
be.
you.
To our listeners out there, if you have a service member who died by suicide in the military and you'd like to tell your story, please contact us at lockedandloadeddiaries@gmail.com, because we want to share as many stories as we can. They're worth fighting for. 1% of the nation serves. 1% is qualified to serve. I was a Army recruiter myself, Patrick.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. And I did 17 years, and I've never seen, witnessed, or heard all this shit that's going down, that's happening now. Not in our military.
I agree. I feel the same way you do. I can't even believe it. I never dreamed it would come to this. I didn't even think this was possible. But like I said, people weren't dying where I was. If they were dying in front of me, I wouldn't have a leg to stand on. They weren't dying, and it was being hidden. It wasn't even being written about. And if it was based upon the fact, I don't know, what comes to mind is the Iowa when that tragedy happened there. It was a guy and his boyfriend or something having relationship problems, and it turned out that was a total lie and wasn't even any truth to that. It was just a cover-up story that they used, the military used. And but occasionally I remember reading stories like that, but there was no, not this. Those numbers were not like that. And if they were, I had no idea. And the sad part is it wasn't talked about. That's part of the problem. Not talking about this is part of the problem. You have to own this and take responsibility, and the uppers don't, and they need to. And we need to force them to. But like I said, the only one that can hold them accountable is the senator, obviously the Secretary of Defense and all that, but they're not gonna. You need to have Congress hold them accountable. And the simplicity is these numbers will go down or you're gone. I pack your bags. What's so hard about saying that? I mean, that's all you do. You're gone. I'll find someone that's going to do it, that wants to do it, that wants to save lives and utilize these people the way that America believes they're being utilized. And if you can't do it, I'll find someone else to do it. That's it. It's nothing. Go home. Fine. Lucky them, they get to retire, 4-star general, whatever they are. But they're not going to run the military anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I'd send them all home, and I'd hold them all accountable. But again, they're not losing their kids. And the few that might have, they discredit those guys. They're not 4-star generals, and they're 1-stars maybe, and they go away secretly. That's what I mean. These people secretly go away, and it's kind of like a car accident. Unfortunately, a lot of people die in car accidents. We know this. What happens to those people? Well, as a professor in college told us, they go away. They get on disability. They go away. We get them out of public sight. That's what we do, and that's what they're doing with this. But this can be fixed. Car accidents, yes, there's room for improvement. It can be fixed, but this is something that can be fixed overnight if we just acted like true human beings and cared about people and never allow people to treat people this way that's in our military. That can change. And that is what we expect and what the public believes. And parents at least need to know this stuff before they let their kids join. They got to know up front.
Yeah. And that's why we're here. We're here to tell those stories. I feel that they don't hold people accountable and these stories aren't told, because then America's sons and daughters won't enlist. And my motto is no accountability, no enlistment. We've got to tell these stories so America knows not to send their children in the military until we get some shit fixed.
Yep.
Yep.
I have to agree. And that truth be told, the Vanessa story, if you know the story like we do, and I'm not telling you anything is secret, LUDAC came out, said that we can no longer support Hispanics joining the military. The Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Army called them immediately and wanted to meet with them. And notice how nobody talks about this. It went away. It's never talked about again. But that sparked the meeting. But here's the sad part. They went in there, they asked, what do you want? LULAC told them a list of demands on that. They weren't ready to do that, but they gave them a list of things they wanted, like the gate named after her and stuff. But they wanted a proper investigation. They wanted accountability and all that. And the Army guaranteed they get it. They didn't. And they are livid too. But they did the same switch. You know, the public was following this. They were on it. It was in everybody's sight. The Army knew it. And they went in there and did damage control and got away with it. For now, they got away with it. But that's what they did. They quashed it and got away with it. And we can't allow that to happen. We got to hold them accountable, like you said, and not let them get away with smoke and mirrors and lip service. Like I said, people are dying here. Here in Arizona, one person died. There was a stop sign we have NASCAR race twice a year. There was a stop sign needed. Apparently, one person dies. They put up a temporary stop sign. Now it's permanent. One person died. We got 600 people a year dying on active duty, and we do nothing. We add a hotline that never gets called. I mean, it's not a matter of just adding. The joke is we're paying possibly, and we're not even, no one's calling it. And it's so, how could you justify that where all these people are dying and you're not doing anything? I don't know. It's disgusting. Like I said, I taught the perspective of a parent who lost his son, but I wish it would have never happened to me. I'm not going to deny that, but it's got to stop. And sooner or later, it's going to happen again to somebody that we care about. And that's where the problem lies. I don't want that to happen. I don't ever want to go to this again either. That's the problem too. I don't want to go through this again with somebody that I know personally love and care about, when I know I can help them and I know I could be for them. And I know that this can be fixed. That's where the problem, I honestly know this can be fixed. That program proved it, but that program could be one of 100 that fixed. And DOD knew about it. Don't get me wrong. He went on tour and showed DOD it. There were many, I don't know, what do you call them, seminars and things like that, where he talked about the program and told them it. They came up, said it's a great program. They never asked how to implement it, asked if he'd help, asked for information on it, nothing. They didn't even care. That's what I mean. That how could that be? At least they could grab a brochure and tell him I'm interested in this and never call him. They don't even go there. They're telling him to his face, this is great, but it's really garbage. I mean, that's what they're doing. That's the part.
It's an eye roll and a yawn.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. It's exactly what it is.
Exactly what it is.
It's like, how could this even be? And the program was free. They gave it to them. There's no money. That's the other funny part. All this, there's no money in any of this. None of this. There's no money for anybody in any of this. We cannot sue the government or get money from the Navy. We will never get a dime from the Navy. There's nothing. We can get justice for Brandon, but we'll never get a dime. There's no money in this. It's all these people that help us and people like yourselves. They do it because they want to and they want to help. I guess it's our way of serving. In my case, maybe we'll say serving again. But
Yes.
It's something that we want to do. But that feeling, I can't let anybody go through that.
No, not at all. And I know, Heather, you don't either.
No, we have to be a safety net for others. And I think that if we can get the information out there of the statistics and what is happening and what could possibly happen if they join in, the military at this point, like you said, it's not safe right now.
Right.
Not safe right now. If they feel like they have to do it, then please go in and do your very best to lead with integrity and empathy and be the valiant soldier that we, or airman or Marine, sailor, that we know that you can be.
Exactly.
We know that you can be, and we believe that you can be. We are here to support you. We the people, that's what we're here for.
Exactly.
And so we need we the people to please come alongside of us, Gold Star families and veterans, wounded warriors, and, so many of our service members that have PTSD and depression and all of these things that are products of what has occurred to them while they are in service. We just need you guys to please, please, please share these stories, share the truth about what's happening right now. We need you guys to be the wind in our sails on this. It is like being obliterated and not knowing, flailing around in an empty ocean, just trying to find somebody that understands what you're going through. And so that's why I'm so grateful for you, Terry and Patrick. Thank you guys so much for being our special guests here on Locked and Loaded Diaries this evening. This has been in the works for way too long, and I'm so glad that we were able to make it happen. Kimberly, you're a badass, and we love you. Thank you so much for just being you and just supporting us through all of this. Your support of us is so important. You being a veteran it is like a breath of fresh air. And so thank you so much for being on our team, and we love you.
We do love you.
I'm sure Patrick can relate. I take this personally. It's like these are happening to my soldiers. This could have been my soldier or sailor or airman, Marine. There are kids. We have to take care of them. And I'm just appalled that somebody, it shocks me. It's hard to really take in. It's so hard. That's your job as a leader, as a commander, is to take care of your troops. Yes, you have to accomplish the mission, but you can't do the mission without the troops.
Exactly.
I am convinced, that's why this thing you're doing here is great. And the other stuff you guys have done, there's people out there that don't believe this. That's where the problem lies. And they don't believe that it went down this way. And then
Right.
A lot of them, you're not going to read any story that specifically says Brandon wasn't a dirtbag. You don't need to put that in the story, but I'm just pointing out that this is true. And we need the veterans and others to know this is true. And we need you got to believe in this story, because like I said, none of the stuff that you look for, the motives, there's no money to be made. As a matter of fact, people will just say, oh, you should make a documentary or do a movie. And I'm thinking, I'm here to tell you, based upon just doing this with you right now, Hollywood would not believe our story. That's how sad and pathetic it is that this really happened. And it happened the way we told you. Yes, there's a lot we don't know, all the secrets. Okay, so that makes it a worse story. It's true, but Hollywood never believed this. There's no way this went down this way or whatever. It did. This is factual. And all we could do is learn and prevent from it. And I do take it personal. And I'm glad no one ever died. I mean, it would have been a wake-up call if they would have died, somebody that worked for me. But the only good part about that, if you want to even call it good, is I don't think anybody was below the age of 25, probably. I mean, this poor kid wasn't even 21 for a month. A month for day. But it would only take it one, and I totally would change everything. And I'd be, wouldn't have been called the Brandon Act, but there'd be something, I'd be doing something actively to prevent, I'd be a leader in preventing suicides if it happened on my watch, to anybody I personally worked with. Because I would want to know the signs, I'd want to understand it, how to prevent it, how to train people to prevent it, and put something in place to put this to a stop. One could say the military taught me to do that. That's how I was successful, basically. I was mind trained to do it that way. The thing is, they're not doing it. I don't understand how you can blame everybody but yourself in this. That's the one part of all this that hurts the most, is that for the most part, like I said, you guys and a few people in this command, they don't care that he's dead.
Right.
That part I can't get over. He deserved better. He did nothing wrong to anybody ever. It'd be different if he did, but he didn't. And to dishonor him and dishonor us like that, those are crimes in itself right there. I just can't believe that human beings would treat human beings like that. Again, people are dying. Death means you're not coming back. This is not a bad story and you're over with and you got out of the military. Yeah, you got screwed over and all that. It's not one of those. This is a death story. These are death stories. They're not coming back. We need to understand that.
Your cat is hilarious.
It's
Brandon's cat.
It's
That's Brandon's
Brandon's
cat. He knows we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's proof
so
there.
cute.
It's funny. That's proof right there. His letter. I'm here to tell you, Brandon knew his cat drove us nuts. We have other cats. And he would have put specifically in that letter to take care of his cat. There's your proof. And his grandmother, he don't say a word. You know how close he was to his grandmother? He don't even tell her I love her, nothing. See, all this is missing with the smoking gun.
Yeah.
That's how we know the letters are incomplete. But the cat and the grandma are dead giveaway.
Yeah.
I mean, a dead giveaway. Unbelievable that they steal that because he wanted us to have that information. But more importantly, that commanding officer could have used that, gone after the other 12, held him accountable, took responsibility for this. His career would be fine. He'd probably be running the top guy in the Navy right now if he would have done it right. Instead, he chose to do what he did along with his executive officer and the other chain of command. They had to live with that. But again, I'm sorry. I know there's so many parts to all of that's another thing we're learning. These Gold Star families, there's so much to their stories. It can't be told in a couple hours. It takes days and months and time, and they remember things that they forgot. And when they talk to us, we open their eyes to things they didn't realize happened too. And they go back, like Heather said, and check and look at things, and they find things. And that's another great part about what you're doing. It creates that stuff because, again, we learn from this stuff. And that's how we, like I said, we stop bad things from happening, kind of like Homeland Security. We're secret Homeland Security here. We're trying to stop bad things from happening.
Right.
And that's it. I mean, that's what we're doing. And it's not a fun thing to do.
We didn't choose this. We didn't
Right.
want to do this. I mean, but we have to illuminate and shine light on these situations. I mean, we have to. There's nothing else that we can do except for use our right to speak.
Exactly.
I said if I was a famous something, I'll just say rock star or something, and I was telling all this, everyone would listen to me because it's me. In this case, I am retired military, and I'm trying to get this point across to everybody with nothing to gain. I mean, there ain't enough money in the world to pay us off to shut up. So there's no money to be
That's a
had,
good
but
point.
there ain't enough money. And what's funny is I'm the type too, I'll let you know, I'll take the money, but I'm still going to talk. You will never shut me up. So,
Hey, I earn an honest
money
living.
against them. It'll be a war chest against them is all it would be. I don't want any money. We don't need money. We don't want money. No, we're not rich. We're fine. And, but we want to help people, and it's from the heart, and we got to stop this together. As a coalition, we can make a difference, and we've saved people already ourselves. I'm sure you have too, and we'll continue to do that. And we're going to have to get those numbers down because obviously the military aren't going to do it. I mean, we are hoping the Brandon and Vanessa Act are going to do something drastic here. But again, we have no control over implementation. We have no control over how serious places take it. There's no Brandon police. There's no Vanessa police. I mean, there are problems, although Senator Kelly and Congressman Moulton has assured us they're going to monitor all this. We'll see. It's not that I'm not saying they're not gonna, I'm just telling you, you know, I want action. Screw the words, I want action. And that's what we need to do to make all this work properly and get the right stuff. But there's going to have to be a Brandon Act 2, 3, 4, and I'm sure there's going to need to be another Vanessa Act. And, you know, I'm sure there's other acts out there. I'm not coming to mind at the moment, but that need to happen in the future to fix all this, because putting.
Well, yeah. I'm so sorry.
No,
I was just going to say that the Commission Block Accountability and Justice
yeah, there you go.
Act
Yes.
is hopefully going to be a big part of the scene.
Absolutely.
Coming up soon. And I know my congressman is working very hard with me to, right now, I think we're just in the process of educating. I'm having to realize I have to do a lot of educating. Even my congressmen, you know, I mean, they don't know these things. And so I'm having to educate them about the Ferris Doctrine and the Brandon Act. I've mentioned the Brandon Act so many times to my congressman, and I'm grateful. I mean, I'm hoping that you know, that we were able to, you know, help you guys push that forward. But regardless, it's moving forward. So
that's great. And
excited.
Texas should take a lead in this. They're one of the largest states, and a lot of things come out of Texas, good and bad. But you know, don't mess with Texas, right? So let's use that to our advantage. There you go. Let's use it.
We do things a little different around these parts.
Use it to our advantage. Vanessa from Texas, Luex, basically from Texas. I mean, there's a lot of things in Texas and a lot more coming. We need to use that to our advantage. And
let's do it, man. Let's help each other. Let's link arms across the nation.
Yeah. An unbroken chain.
Yes. We'll be the unbroken chain that was broken for our patriots.
Right.
That's all we do is honor them. And, you know, I will tell you, I'm learning this. I don't like it. But there's a lot of ways. Justice works in strange ways. Sometimes it's not the jail thing you like to see or the death chair or whatever, but justice works in many ways. And knowing that these people are going to be forever tied, they're going to have Brandon Act issues, and they're going to be tied to it. And the word's going to get out, the story's going to get out, and people are going to know who they are. And so it comes in many forms. So we need to
I agree.
Take what we could get. But by saving people, educating them, like
Yes.
you guys said, that is the first step. I mean, meaning that puts a stop. Like I said, it's seeking and destroy it through education.
I love the order that you did it in too, because you could have sought for justice first, but you chose, and Brandon, through his guidance, I believe, like pushing you guys, guiding you. And I don't know about you guys, but I hear Caleb's, like, I can hear him speaking to me in ways, you know, I'm not trying to make myself sound crazy here, but I can just feel when he's going, yes, let's move forward with this. And so I love that you guys worked on the Brandon Act to make sure that as fast as possible, we could make sure that we had something to offer our service members to hopefully protect them so that they can do their job.
Yes.
And now
Yes.
it's like we've said before, it's time to pursue justice for Brandon. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We got this, man.
And just imagine how many lives we're going to save along the way.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
a positive part. We're going to save a bunch of lives doing it, no matter what, too. It's just going to happen. And that's the part that's Brandon. I could see him smiling about it. I know he smiles over that.
Can we see that picture of Brandon behind you? any of the ones that you want to show us, but I just love that. Yes, thank you. Love that. Look at him. And there's that picture I was talking about earlier, kind of proving the fact that it's from the very beginning. He's had it's been in his heart to serve his country, to be like his dad.
Can you see it or
walk in his father's footsteps? Yes, it's beautiful.
Aslan?
Aslan. You know what I love about his name, Aslan, is well, I'm sure that you guys, you know, maybe think of his name too as the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You heard?
That's where it came from. All our cats are named after Disney characters.
Really? Well, I love that because Aslan was, you know, like the protector, and he was, you know, basically the hero. And so that's kind of cool.
It is.
And Brandon loved that movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I named him Aslan.
Yeah, we have a Zeus, a Nala, and Ariel.
Yeah, our animals are our service animals, I would say at this point. You know, they are so important.
Exactly.
In our lives after all this grief. You know, I'm waiting on the perfect dog, but right now I have a cat, and I love him so much. But he's been by me at my side. I got him right before like Caleb got to meet him, and he was like, "This is the coolest cat in the whole world." It was like the first cat Caleb ever loved.
Oh wow!
You know, and so like Smokey's my man. You know, he's been my snuggle buddy and my heartwarming like pillow, and you know, big hug, big warm hug if I need something like that. So, oh man. Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
We got
it.
So we
All right,
need
Kimberly,
to
take us
get more
out, sister.
stories. You need to do more, which you're gonna. And then
Oh yeah, we've got
we need
5
feedback. When I say feedback, not necessarily on the shows, but on the like the woman, the nurse that came up to me. We need those stories that she said that she was thanking me for other veterans on her own and everything, and how they needed help, her and her friends. We need those stories because those stories are backing everything we're doing.
Right.
And they're true. And plus they're alive to tell those stories. They're sad, but they're alive to tell them. And that's important. And then the other thing is you'll notice a lot of people that help you, whether they were in or not, if they lost someone to suicide, and a lot of times it's been a service member, they want to help. So you have a network out there of resources that'll come out of the woodwork. They know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I encourage you guys that are veterans. I met a veteran last night, and Kimberly, you remember this young man, fella. I don't know how old he was, but I think his name is Austin. But he just was really struggling, you know, with PTSD, and mentioned that he needed some mental health, and you know, I'm like, I encouraged him, you know, like reach out, see if you can find an organization around you, or even maybe like somebody that's like just like veterans that are hanging out having coffee or something, you know. Try to find people around you that can share your same understanding, like what we're doing here, you know. I mean, like there's just not very many people that would understand the particular brand of pain that we have. It's just like there's not very many people that might understand the particular brand of pain that many of our veterans suffer through. So I don't know. And the other thing is this, you know, if it's not around or available, build it and make it yourself. And the more you give to other people and helping them, the more you're going to heal and feel even more fulfilled and less of all of those anxieties and things that, you know, because you're giving what you need. to somebody else. And you're going to get it back. You're going to get it
True.
back. And we love you.
Yes, we do.
So,
Okay.
Okay, I guess we're done.
We could talk all night.
I know, right?
it's not hard.
But I wanted,
Well, this is your first
I
one.
want to thank our
So it'll be
listeners.
a little less in the future, but
Yeah.
you gotta take the best, the good. There's some great stuff. There's some good stuff. There's some very good stuff.
I enjoyed listening to you, Patrick. Enjoy listening to you talk, sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And
Well,
thank
you
our
gotta sample
listeners
the
for,
congressmen and senators. I'm meaning it was great doing it, but some of them were,
Crazy.
yeah, not so helpful. And the staffs, the kids running the staffs and stuff, just whatever.
Kimberly, close us out here.
Go ahead.
thank you to our listeners for hanging with us for so long this evening. We'll soon be on all platforms to include like your favorite platforms like iTunes and Spotify. We're just fine tuning this brand new podcast as brand new podcasters. We've got already a lot of stories already on the schedule for you. So, and unfortunately, I think, we won't run out of episodes.
I'll be
Rest in
next.
peace, Brandon.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
love
Heather,
Brandon.
your own Heather Baker will be here next week to talk about her son PV2, Army PV2, Caleb Smither. Good night.
We love you guys. God bless America.